Hello, welcome everyone to the Spotlight here on Fightful.com. I'm Jeremy Lambert, joined as always by currently a safe and sound Stephen Jensen. It's very possible that your roof caves in the middle of this show, Jensen.
Yeah, I was right before we went live. I was like, let's just not talk about my roof or my ceiling, but yeah, Jeremy's gonna lead the show off with it. Yeah, I just had some unfortunate luck where we got a lot of rain the other day and my ceiling is leaking. So it's been 2 days now that the guy hasn't shown up to fix it. Really not that big of a deal. I mean, it is a big deal, like because it has to get fixed. But like, luckily the weather's been good and it's not supposed to rain the next few days. But like. Yeah, so I'm doing this show from my a different room just so I can kind of keep an eye on it just in case. But yeah, outside of that, man, everything else is good. I'll definitely let y'all know if there's an emergency that I have to take care of. But we should be good. So how you doing, man?
I'm good. Yeah, I do this show from a different room every single week. I feel like when we spoke to Jaden Newman, the new SUP Bonestorm champion. He's going to be in our creator spotlight a little bit later on, and I'm in a different room there. So I got various settings as well, Jensen. We move around here on the Spotlight offices.
Very true. Very, very fluid show that we do here. So
yes, we got a lot to talk about today. A tremendous show, our biggest lineup of all time. Major announcements. What else can we plug? A lot of news coming out of the show. As mentioned, we do have Jaden Newman in our creator spotlight a little bit later on. That was Jensen's indie spotlight. We will talk about that, him winning the Bonestorm Championship. Then you hear from Jaden, get his thoughts on winning that title and a lot more. Another fun interview. We got pretty much a closing interview segment now, Jensen, that I'm really happy with. That
yes.
Our guests seem to enjoy the past couple of weeks.
That happened completely organically too. Like we didn't it just started happening and it just kind of became a thing, which is I agree. It's pretty cool that it's already evolving all of this. So
it's Gabe Sapolsky's going to be on the show pretty soon to talk about Evolve, I would imagine. I don't know what else he's doing, so might as well just join us and hang out with us dorks for a couple hours. We got AEW, we got WWE, we have GCW, we have Impact, a lot to talk about. Let's get into it, Jensen. Let's start with AEW as they're coming off Revolution and Dynamite last night, which had a bunch of news attached to it. But my AEW spotlight for this week, we're going to work our way backwards here. My AEW spotlight is Jeffrey Hardy making his AEW debut last night. Wasn't the best kept secret in the world. Everyone pretty much kind of knew once he was free and clear from the 90 days, he was going to be joining AEW. He joined AEW. Matt got turned on by Private Party and he got attacked. Darby and Sting initially made the save, but the Hardy family offices and Andrade continued to attack him. And then the familiar Jeff Hardy theme, the Hardy Boys theme hits. And instead of, running down, instead of, immediately just going to save his brother, Jeff's like, I got to get my shit in, brother. Like, there we go. Let me do my dance. I cackled so hard when he just decided to dance over. First off, he was way late. It's like, let Sting and Darby make the save first. And then he finally comes down to make his save. But yeah, beforehand, he's got to do his dance there, Jensen. He had to get his shit in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because part of me, logically speaking, right, it makes no sense for him to stop and do all that, right? Like to play to the crowd before he goes out to right. But I also feel like if he didn't do it, we would have been a little disappointed because when you hear that music,
he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it afterwards. Like the music was going to play again.
But the whole crowd's doing it. But I know, trust me. Like I immediately thought it looked strange, just like everybody else did. Like when he came out and instead of just running straight to the ring, he's looking out. And the funny thing was he tried to get it in so fast. So he's shuffling sideways and hitting it real quick just because he wants to get it in, but also he's concerned about Matt getting his ass kicked. So he's got to get in there to save him at the same time. But no, I just thought it was funny. It was harmless. It was just funny how it kind of happened.
It's major WWE brain. I don't blame Jeff for this. Sean tweeted, you got effing Stockholm syndrome B. It's major WWE brain when the old joke is when Rhea Ripley was coming down to make a save the one time in NXT, she had to do her stomp entrance. She did that whole big ordeal. It's you're making a save. You don't have to do your big theatric entrance. The Miz always gets knocked for this. It's a serious match. We need when Bray Wyatt's break into his house and shit. Serious Miz. He's gonna really show some fire. It's he just does his little spin and point entrance. And show something different during this. Don't just do your choreographed entrance. Like that's what this was to me. It legitimately was the Stockholm Syndrome joke that the Young Bucks made on being the elite, and that like Jeff is just so used to, oh, there's my music. Let me do my dance, that like he just had to do that no matter what. Hopefully he realizes like, I don't have to do this all the time. I can do this afterwards and it'll be okay.
You know who else needs to take that lesson is Pentagon, because there's far too many times where that dude is like in an offensive position and like he's got the match where he wants it, and he's just gotta whip out the Sarah Miro, and like as he's doing it, he gets reversed. It happens like over and over and over again. So yeah, but that was just something that just popped in my mind when you kind of brought that up. But yeah, it was funny watching the internet's response to the Jeff Hardy stuff as well. Like everyone was talking about it. I saw like Denise marking out for it and stuff. So like, and I was there at WrestleMania 33 when the Hardys returned in Orlando to the WWE. And that was a big part of that moment, right? Like the New Day up on the ramp with them and they're all doing it together and everyone's just going crazy. But then again, they weren't like, that wasn't a time sensitive thing. That was just like their entrance coming out and everyone did it. It was funny that Jeff's like I said, he was doing like the move, but like clearly like trying to get to the ring way faster than normal while he was doing it. So it was just kind of funny how it all just kind of, but all that said, it is really cool to see Jeff Hardy in AEW. Like I'm all for him being in the company. So like, and we all saw it coming, right? Like we knew, like Matt's getting beat up in the ring. He's outnumbered. And then it's like, well, maybe they'll hold off because, Sting and Darby can fight them off, but now they're outnumbered too. And it's like, it's gotta be Jeff. And the fans are saying, Jeff. And so we got what we wanted again with AEW. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was, again, the worst kept secret. Everyone knew it was going to happen. I think the only person who was maybe slightly not confused but wary of Jeff Hardy being there was Sting. Sting looked like, the last time I saw you, we had some issues in the ring. Like everything good with you right now? Jeff is fine. Everything seems good, but that was obviously a low point in both men's career for Sting and Jeff Hardy. So I can understand him being a little tense with that. As far as Jeff and Matt go, it looks like they're going to team. I would imagine. I don't think so. Just my opinion on this. I don't think they're going to go anywhere beyond teaming. I know Jeff is a major single star. Like that man has charisma for days. He's going to continue to be over long before he retires or long after he retires. I don't think we're going to see any like type of major singles Jeff Hardy run unless Matt gets hurt or anything like that. It feels like their ceiling is just kind of tag team. Maybe they win the tag team titles as a feel good moment. Where do you see Jeff, like what his ceiling and role and position is in AEW?
So I'm with you with the Hardys. I think they'll have some dream matches, and then they can always go back to that when they want to, right? So like, they can always, unlike some other companies, it's possible to have like alliances with people, but not turn on them. So like the Hardys can do their own thing, but also be a team while they're also doing stuff in single competition. So like, I do think that Jeff is going to be, in the short term, I would say, quote unquote, more valuable in the tag team with Matt, because like people are clamoring for like the Hardys and the Young Bucks and the Hardys and maybe like Sting and Darby. And there are all these Hardy matches we're thinking about. But then, yeah, Jeff Hardy versus Darby Allin in a singles match. That's like, I tweeted this as well. Like the obvious thing is right there too. And you kind of touched on it as well a second ago, but I really want a Sting versus Jeff Hardy like redemption match. Like, and because dude, I bought that pay-per-view all those years ago, like 10 years ago. I remember buying that pay-per-view. I lived by myself. I had just moved to Nashville, Tennessee. I didn't have like any friends, and I was like just lonely. And
Stephen Jensen was looking for Sting versus Jeff Hardy to comfort him in his new city.
Exactly. And so like, and this is like 10 years ago already, which is crazy. But like, I remember sitting there watching it off of my laptop because I didn't even have a way at the time to like have it on my TV. So like, I remember sitting there and like waiting for the match, and then like, I'll never forget what actually happened. And ever since then, it's kind of been like, and you can also tell that story, I think, in AEW. Like if Hardy's okay with like the way it's told, like it would be a pretty cool kind of story to tell, like heading into a rematch like that, where they can go into the history of like, and they also, they have the relationship with Impact, and they could probably show footage of it and stuff too, and be like, as like an actual real like story of someone turning their life around, and like seeing where Jeff's at now, and like now we can finally have that dream match that we didn't get 10 years ago, that everyone, kind of looks back and makes fun of, and feels really bad, for Jeff and Sting, everyone involved. It was just a terrible situation all the way around. So yeah, I really want Sting versus Jeff. I really want Jeff versus Darby. Those are like the two biggest ones off the top of my head. He has history with CM Punk. That could get interesting. He has history with Christian. He got history with a lot of people in the company. And he is a big enough star still, for sure, in my opinion, that like he doesn't, like he fits in like the main event AEW scene already, no matter what, kind of, in my opinion, because of the level he is and the respect he has like amongst his peers, like in the ring and everything. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Jeff is a singles guy, like that ultimately will be like the biggest, the most money that he makes for them, I think, is going to be as a singles guy, but we'll get a lot of Hardy Boy stuff as well.
I think he'll mainly be utilized as a tag team. They will certainly like do some single stuff with him. Matt mentioned that like his ideal trios team is Jeff and Darby, and I mean they're already aligned after last night. So I imagine we'll get some 6-mans with those three as well. I do think so. On the subject of Sting and Jeff, I'm not building a pay-per-view around this match or anything like that. I do think if you sell it as like a redemption match, and it's just two baby faces, and it's like, hey, this happened. This is a shitty period in my life. We know Jeff is like comfortable with this kind of stuff because he was comfortable doing a lot of dumb shit in WWE that would touch on this stuff, and went forward with it. And if you sell it as a redemption thing of like, we're going to go out there and we're going to improve, like even if it's, a decade later, we can have a good match, and we don't want this to be the lasting memory when people think of Sting and Jeff Hardy in the ring together. I'm okay with that. I don't need them like beating me over the head and doing like any type of long-term story that is just dragged out for weeks, and like one guy trying to play babyface, one guy trying to play heel, like Sting, like calling him like a screw up and like, you fucked this up and that up. I don't need any of that. Just do it as like, hey, it was a bad time, a lot of regrets. Let's redeem ourselves. Let's go out and do this. Cool. Tell that story for a week, do the match, move on. No, I don't need any of this heel turn stuff, JJ. I don't need any of that. But I'm cool with doing a redemption story with those two. I don't know how much Jeff is going to be utilized as like a singles run kind of guy, because I do think with him coming in, it's going to be very similar to a lot of the other legends that they have, in that he's going to be helping the young guys more than anything. I don't think they're going to play too much off of, like Jericho has said it many times, Christian has said it, like, we don't need to do like Christian and Matt Hardy, Jericho and Matt Hardy, Jericho and Christian, because we've seen all those matches. Like, you want to build to the future and everything. So I think you'll see Jeff against against like Private Party. We're going to see the Hardy Boys and Private Party at some point. We might see Jeff and Andrade. We're going to see Jeff probably against like somebody like Daniel Garcia at some point. Like, I think we're going to see him more against the younger guys than kind of rehashing a lot of historical stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. Like, I think we're going to get a mix of all of these things. And I should probably rephrase something I said it before. What I really mean by Jeff as like a singles guy is like, the ceiling is really high for him to do a lot of stuff in singles, whereas like that ceiling doesn't really exist for Matt, unfortunately. Like Matt, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't have Matt in a lot of the same spots that I feel like you could have Jeff in as a singles guy with a lot of these big matches that we're talking about. I also think it'd be cool to see Sting and Jeff team together, like just to see it, like Sting, because Sting's like Jeff's, like favorite wrestler growing up and stuff, and he does the paint. It'd be cool to see Jeff in Sting face paint next to him. That'd be pretty cool. Even if they did a trio with him and Darby and Sting would be really cool too. But yeah, there's just a lot of possibilities with Jeff Hardy, and for someone like him, it's just extra cool because you have all these possibilities that we're talking about in singles competition and in tag team competition and potentially trios. Like, there's just a lot you can do with him there. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm happy. He looks healthy. You know what I mean? When you see him out there, I mean, he looks healthy. So I'm happy with what I'm seeing.
Jensen, your connection is going to hell. I have no idea what's happening. You look like the roof has collapsed and you're underwater right now.
Let me see if I can plug in something else real quick. I'll be back in 1 second.
I'm going to read this super chat from Kurt Benoit, who says, would love a heel Jeff to win the TNT title, and his first defense is against Sting, and the main event of Winter is coming this year. I could see Jeff potentially getting a run with the TNT. I'm going to mute Jensen while he clangs around. I could see him getting a TNT title run at some point. It would have to probably be sooner rather than later. I don't know how long Jeff has left. I'm sure he's got a few more years in him. I could see them going that route. I don't think his ceiling as a singles guy is much higher, largely because of just the roster they have. I mean, Jeff Hardy in WWE is world champion. Yeah, that makes sense because they like relying on that kind of stuff, and they haven't built any new stars in the last 20 years, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But Jeff Hardy in AEW, that ceiling is lowered as far as potential world title run because they just don't need him to be the world champion. All right, it looks much better. I will say that. I have you muted, Jensen. It looks better if you can hear.
It's getting better. I have a different setup in here with it being another room because of my ceiling. But I'm hardwired into something different now. So I'm hoping that helped.
It helped a little bit. You feel like you're in a robo throughout this thing. Oh boy, to call in Joel Pearl to do the show. I don't want to do that. I never want to do a show with Joel Pearl. But yeah, Jeff, as far as the world title, I don't see that as his ceiling in AEW. If they do it, I feel like it would be a mistake. I'm excited to see Jeff in AEW though. He looks happy. He looks healthy. I know teaming with Matt is always a good thing for him. So they'll have some fun matches. People will love when they work the Young Bucks. They'll work Private Party. It'll be great. There's no shortage of tag teams for Jeff to work, for the Hardys to work. So I know they're excited to work a lot of those guys. It's a better utilization of Matt as well because the Hardy family office stuff, it wasn't always clicking for me. Matt is, and I like Matt as a person and as a performer. I didn't need him wrestling on every single pay-per-view in the capacity that he would wrestle oftentimes. Just didn't need it. And now as a tag team, it'll make more sense for him to be in some of these matches. So I think it'll be good for Matt as well, as far as better utilization for him.
Yes. Can you still see and hear me okay right now?
I mean, I can't see you okay. Very blurry.
So weird. I have no idea, like, because this is the same connection I use in my office right now, so I do not know why.
The audio isn't bad. Like the audio is fine, so like that'll be okay. The video is just a little blurry.
Yeah, and Joel, I just got your DM. Yeah, I actually just made that switch a few minutes ago from my Wi-Fi to my Ethernet, so I don't know. I'm not sure. Sorry guys, I apologize. I have no idea what's happening.
Tech issues, very on brand for just about anything I do. So it makes sense. Honestly, it makes sense. Jensen, your AEW spotlight for this week.
My AEW spotlight this week is CM Punk's entrance at the pay-per-view at Revolution. There has been a lot of talk about this, and I personally loved it because, I was a fan of Ring of Honor back. Like I understood the reference, but I get there's been this whole debate about like fans not, understanding it or getting mad because they didn't get it or getting mad because other people didn't get it. So I just wanted to get your opinion on like kind of the whole thing with CM Punk and the entrance. Cause I love the entrance. I love the throwback. I love the throwback gear, the music, the whole deal, the whole vibe, everything about it I thought was great. But I want your opinion on kind of how you felt about it and kind of the conversation online about it.
First off, you, as Joel says, you seem to be stabilizing. The video is good. The audio is good.
It must have taken a second to like recognize that I had switched over to the. What's crazy is I use the other connection when I do fight nights. Mm-hmm. So like it's never been a problem before, which is crazy with like 5 or 6 people on here with me sometimes. But we should be good to go. I apologize, y'all. I think we're good now. So cool.
Apologize. Says Retribution is attacking Jensen's equipment. Could be that. What I don't know what they're up to nowadays. So they need somebody new to attack. So it could be you, Jensen. Jensen doesn't understand a Retribution reference. He doesn't watch.
No, I get it. I remember. I know who T-Bar is. Come on, man. Dude. I used to drive. I one time drove 5 hours to watch Dijak versus Marufuji. And like now Dijak is just I saw him the other week on Raw because I watched for a couple weeks to see if Cody was going to show up, and he came out. And I think Omos just like destroyed him like real fast, and I was like, damn, too bad for Dijak. That's a bummer.
Punk's entrance. I don't want to say I saw it coming because a week before, 2 weeks or days before, I didn't see it coming. When MJF pulled off the Cult of Personality hits and then his music and then MJF music hit and then MJF comes out, I told the EP, I was like, oh, Punk's going to come out to AFI because I didn't think they were going to play Cult of Personality again after playing it once. I was like, oh, Punk's going to come out to AFI. And she's like, I don't know what that means. And then he does, and I'm explaining to her like why this is a thing and everything. And she loved the song, so she was just like, "Sure, whatever. I just really like this song, and I like AFI." But I explained it to her. So here's kind of my take. One, as somebody who followed the history, knows the history of CM Punk, I thought it was great. I absolutely love that he wore the gym shorts, the jacket, came out to AFI. He's a coward because he didn't choose Just for Men to grow his hair out or dye it blonde or anything like that from Wednesday to Sunday. Tony Khan, also a coward for having CM Punk win. But I love the throwback entrance. I don't get that, like, oh, people don't get it. And, you know, they're appealing to just this certain level of fan and stuff. Like, did it take away from anyone's enjoyment? Like, if you're a casual fan watching this and you didn't understand the reference, is it like, oh, this just ruined the whole feud for me? This just ruined the whole match for me. Like, it's just over. Like, I hate everything about this feud in this match because I don't understand why CM Punk is coming out to this theme. If so, Jensen, I know you're not the right person to ask about this because you understood all of this stuff. But again, going back to the EP, she didn't get any of this stuff. I explained it to her, and she's like, oh, okay, that's cool. And she's like, well, now I hope Punk really kicks his ass and everything. Like, that was it. That was the conversation we had around it. There was no like, oh, well, I hate everything about this now because I don't understand this reference. I think it's a dumb argument to have. I think people were just like looking for something to put out there, and like it got the reaction that it wanted from the hardcore fans because everyone loved it, and the people who were looking for something to be mad about, they got their reaction as well because they were mad about something stupid, and we all talked about it for way more than we needed to.
Yeah, and I also think, you know, this is just me. It's just a thought. You know, I think when it comes to CM Punk, that also added to this, and the reason being, I think a lot of wrestling fans like associate their fandom with being a CM Punk fan. Like a lot of them, you know, like he's the one that like kept them into wrestling in like the early 2010s. A lot of people identify with him as like being like a straight edge, you know, person like he is. And I feel like a lot of people like they're just really, really heavily invested in like being a CM Punk fan. And I think some of those people, like they didn't get the reference and it made them feel foolish almost. Like, how do I not get this? I'm a big CM Punk fan. I don't get this. And then you see people, I won't name names, but I saw some people that are like involved in like some major websites.
That
didn't get
the ink on wrestling,
right? So you know, and they, you know, and I'm not saying that it doesn't like ruin your overall credibility as like someone who talks about wrestling or has an opinion on wrestling. It isn't anything like that, but it is something where when you're talking about certain things that have to do with wrestling, when you know, like, oh, they didn't know that, like they might not know what they're talking about when it comes to this. You know, but that's not across the board. And it's also one of those things too, where just because you're a fan of pro wrestling doesn't mean you need to know every single thing about pro wrestling. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like there's no shame in it, but it is just one of those things where I did see some people kind of got caught with their pants down, you know, when they didn't get it. So.
It was the same thing when Eddie paid tribute with the singlet and the green gear against Moxley. Like, if you don't get it, that's fine. Like, okay, if you don't get it, then you don't get it. It was Masawa, right? That he paid tribute to with that gear.
Yeah.
And I apologize if I'm wrong on that. I'm sure the chat will fill me in. My memory is god awful. But like, if you don't get it, that's okay. Like people are saying, Google or just check your Twitter feed, and I'm sure somebody you follow has probably referenced it. Don't be an idiot about it and just like put it out there and be like, "This is dumb. I don't get it." Like, just you don't have to comment. You don't have to comment on all of this stuff. You don't have to comment on it. If you don't get it, ask somebody. Ask somebody politely. Just like, "Hey, why is this a big deal? Like, I don't understand this. Can somebody fill me in? And somebody, hopefully, will be kind enough to fill you in as, fill you in nicely. And they won't be a dick about it when they're trying to fill you in either. But like, yeah, don't be like, this is stupid. Like, it just ruined everything, because some of that stuff, it's not for you. All right. But again,
exactly.
I don't understand how it ruins anything. I just don't understand how, like, it didn't take away from the feud. It didn't take away from the match. Either you got the reference, and for people like us, it enhanced everything, because like, oh shit, he's calling back to this stuff. And I tweeted it, and it was like, if you're mad about CM Punk using the throwback gear at Revolution and the throwback song at Revolution, wait till I tell you about this entire feud, which had references all throughout CM Punk's ROH career and even some WWE references. MJF was mentioning WrestleMania, and Punk was referencing his WWE time. MJF was referencing his WWE time. Like, they were digging into a lot of history and a lot of Easter eggs with the references they had during this feud. So if you were mad about this stuff, then you're going to be mad about a lot of stuff when I explain this feud to you and break down this feud to you, because it was nothing but historical references and Easter eggs.
Yeah, which once again shouldn't take anything away from anybody who was watching it in real time without knowledge of the past, but it just enhanced it to the next level for people like us. Like, it feels rewarding as a wrestling fan who is as invested as we are for as long as we have been, that there's a company that is actually making callbacks to stuff we were fans of 2 and 3 decades ago, when like we saw it as kids and we're like, oh my God, like they were actually like, I think it's awesome when they do stuff like that. Also, I thought that, like, to me, when I saw CM Punk come out to that music and looking the way he did with that gear on and everything, and like just the look in his eyes, like he was almost like crying, like walking to the ring. And he had like the 3 X's on the back of his jacket, and like the crowd, CM Punk, and no Titantron or whatever you call it, the big screen. No, it's just all black and just some smoke. And that felt like, I talked about this with Doug last night. It felt like CM Punk's soul returned. It was back. It's like, or it never left, but like we're seeing it again. It was like, I've given the guy a lot of shit for his UFC run, right? Like, that's mainly because, in the MMA bubble, he didn't have a good run there. That's a different world.
Hey guys,
but like he did, right? But since he's come back to AEW, and especially since this feud and this match with MJF, like, you'll never hear me say another bad thing about CM Punk, especially when it comes to like, it's just, I appreciate what this guy's doing right now. That CM Punk and MJF feud, that is top tier professional wrestling, in my opinion. Like, it's hard to do something that good. That long feud and the build up in the first match with MJF winning twice, and CM Punk getting the big win in the dog collar match, Wardlow's turn, everyone went nuts for that. Like, I mean, that, like, I got to give CM Punk and MJF as well, but like, since we're talking about CM Punk more specifically, I got to give him massive, massive credit for what he's done since coming back to AEW, especially what I saw this past Saturday night at Revolution. I thought that was incredible stuff.
He's definitely revitalized when it comes to AEW. I've loved just about everything he's done in AEW, honestly. Like, there was a slow burn where he just wanted to have like matches and stuff. And I know people were upset about that. And I was kind of one of them. I was like, all right, it wasn't that I was upset that he was just having matches. I was like, let's get into some meat of CM Punk here, because we know this man is a tremendous storyteller. Like, cool, he's going out happy-go-lucky Punk having matches. That's fine. Let me get to some stories with CM Punk. And we started to see that with Kingston. We really saw it with MJF. And yeah, like this one and Hangman Omega are the 2 best stories that they've done. I still think Tony Khan is a coward and MJF should have won. But MJF or CM Punk, you can tell the passion has returned as Grapsody's own, Fightful's own, Righteous Reg, #1 media personality in all of wrestling media, made CM Punk. He's got to send me the royalties for that. My check should be in the mail. He made CM Punk cry with his question. So the man is passionate. He loves this shit. And like, it's a cool thing. Reggie here says it's like when Marvel has an Easter egg in a movie. I'm a hardcore comics nerd, but sometimes I miss it too. Does not take away anything. Like, I watch some of the Marvel stuff. I can't say I watch all of it. Like, I don't get all of these references that they do, but the movies are still really enjoyable to me. And then if I watch it with somebody who does get a reference, they're like, oh, there's this, and it just enhances the film for him, because the hardcore fans love, like you said, they love that their intelligence is not being insulted. Like they love that they're getting these little things of like, oh man, that's cool. Like they remember this, or they're paying tribute to this, or they're honoring this. Like that's really cool. And to me, because it is an Easter egg and it's not something that is the defining point of the story, it's like, hey, it doesn't take anything away from what these people are actually doing, from what the overall theme of the story is. There was a lot of history in the overall part of this story. Even if you didn't know any of the little Easter eggs, they gave you enough context, especially with like MJF's promos and Punk's promos. They gave you enough context to be like, oh, even if you don't know these two men and you just started following them since their AEW time, they explained enough that they need to explain to where you were invested in the story. So I don't know why people were mad about it, except that it's Twitter and it's the internet and people just want to be mad about shit, honestly.
Yeah, that's very fair. Because it was just very bizarre when I logged in on Twitter the next time, like to like after the show, to see like, it's like there's people that are mad that they didn't get it. There's people mad that other people didn't get it. There's mad that people didn't get it that should have known to get it. There's people that were mad. Like it was just all over the place. And I'm just sitting here going like, I don't care about any of this. Like that was incredible. I've rewatched that entrance like 10 times since it happened. Like it doesn't take anything away from me as a fan, like, you know, enjoy. And once again, it enhanced it for me. And this is across multiple mediums of entertainment. You just talked about it with the Marvel type stuff, with the super chat with Reggie. And, you know, like kind of a good example. I just watched the Joe versus Carol show, the Tiger King show on Peacock.
Yeah.
And if you had never seen the documentary, which I've seen the documentary multiple times, but like if you'd never seen the documentary, you're watching that and you're probably going like, this is the craziest story I've ever heard. There's no way this is true. This guy's got to be a made up character and blah 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 blah, and all these different people and all these little side characters they had in this world. But like, because I had seen the documentary before I watched this show, it was almost like an Easter egg that rewarded me for like being a fan of it for years, because you're watching it and like, you know who these people are before you see them, and they're adding little things to where like, so it's just one of those things. It's all across all entertainment. Just wrestling fans get very, very, very married to we're all guilty of it. All right. Almost every wrestling fan thinks that they know the most about wrestling. Almost every wrestling fan, like they feel like their favorite wrestlers should be the wrestlers that are getting the big pushes and like the matches they want to see and this and that. Because as wrestling fan, and in wrestling, it's one of the few forms of entertainment that fans feel like they can actually make a difference of what they're seeing on the screen. In most forms of entertainment, when it's movies and TV shows and stuff, they're just going to give you what they give you and like just see what the reaction is. But like, it's not going to really change much. Like the director's going to do what they do. In wrestling, I think fans have this idea, which isn't completely untrue, but like that their voice is being heard and that they matter to like this other, to a different type of degree to like the show that they're watching. So when things don't go how they expected, or they're realizing that they might not know everything they think they know about this, they just get really, really, really upset about it. And it's unfortunate. It was really weird seeing everybody get so angry online. And by the way, I didn't want to talk about this today, but I felt like I had to bring it up on this show because everybody else was talking about it. So like, I felt like I wanted your opinion, because I know we're kind of on the same. We've been watching wrestling for the same amount of time. You know, we both got it. So I wanted to kind of hear your opinion on it. So, and I think most of the chat seems to agree with us from what I'm seeing in the comments. So.
My opinion is the same as Matt Jackson, in that all wrestling fans suck and all of wrestling sucks. I'm pretty sure those were the exact words of Matt Jackson. Nobody take that out of context. Aiden, not a super chat, but I feel it's such an important question that it must be asked. Wants to know, why has Stephen Jensen seen Tiger King multiple times?
Because it's fascinating. I mean, I haven't watched it in quite a while, but that was one thing when like the pandemic started that like, yeah, it was like, you know, like the world stopped and we all had one thing.
But multiple times, like I've watched it once. I couldn't watch the second season. Like I watched like 20 minutes of the second season, and maybe because I watched it in a different state of mind and I just couldn't like get into it. But like I just could not get into the second season.
The second season, I can't even remember what all happened in the second season. That got a little bit deeper into like Carol's stuff with her husband, Dawn. And all that. Is my connection still okay, by the way? Or is
it's in and out, but
it's in
okay.
and out. I'm sorry. I've done everything I can. It has to be my actual internet provider right now. Like there's just nothing I can do about it. I'm sorry, but yeah, that's all, dude. It is a fascinating story with all these just crazy characters. So I like rewatching stuff that I like because I feel like that's like Breaking Bad. I've watched multiple times because like there's just so much stuff that like I know that I missed the first time. So like that was kind of the thing with the Tiger King. We don't really need to talk about the Tiger King. I don't know why we're even.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Tiger King. You're watching Joe versus. Hey, you're watching Joe versus Carol. I saw the ads for that, and I'm like, why are they making a TV show about the document? Like, what more stories can they tell here? Is it good? I actually want to like maybe check this show out. Like, should I watch this?
It's interesting. It goes deeper into the backstories of like what made these people the way that they were in the documentary, but it's also impossible to know how accurate it is. You know what I mean? Because like right. Because some of the stuff is like very dramatic, you know. But I don't know. Well, I'll say, how do I say this? A lot of it had to do with like Joe Exotic, like just him like discovering he's gay and like all these like relationships he had with like all these guys and just kind of like that was a big part of it. And then like Carol and like her, but here's the thing, they really made it out to where like from the beginning of it to the end of it, like Carol is portrayed as the good guy and Joe is portrayed as the ultra villain. Where I'm not necessarily saying that was or wasn't accurate in real life. It depends on how you see the whole situation, but plenty of people I think probably saw that and were like, Carol wasn't this like they make her out to be this like this just incredibly like witty, funny, outgoing, positive, just like it didn't match up quite kind of how the documentary looked, if that makes sense.
Why are we spotlighting Tiger King? Because I just assume Carol is going to wrestle at WrestleMania, given that they need any type of celebrity involvement that they can get. They've got Johnny Knoxville, they've got Logan Paul, they're bringing back Steve Austin. I feel like I'm missing like a ton of celebrities.
I mean, Cody Rhodes might be there. Who knows?
McAfee, Cody Rhodes is a celebrity. I watched him on TBS last night, the Go Big Show. That's all he does nowadays, right? He's just reality TV.
He's absolutely a celebrity. I'm not disputing that fact. I'm saying he may or may not be at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
He's definitely a gigantic star. I mean, the biggest star in the world. What are you talking about? Cody Rhodes? Let's go.
They're bringing back Steve Austin, and we kind of talked about this when Sean broke the news of, hey, they've reached out to Austin to do something at Mania, potentially wrestle. Austin accepted Kevin Owens' invitation and said, like, you can call it a confrontation, you can call it the KO show, you can call it a match, call it a fight, whatever you want to call it. He's like, I'm going to kick your ass. Passionate promo. Austin can still cut a hell of a promo. Looks to be in great shape. I don't know what we're going to get out of this. I'll probably be fired up because I love the glass shattering. Like I said, I'm going to be drinking the Dr. Peppers on the couch and going around doling out the stunners to all the kids and everything. But I don't know what to expect from this. I don't really have much more to add than what I added before. Jensen, I'm going to eat a peanut butter Oreo.
Yes, let's go. Have you held off on doing this whole time?
I've not done this yet.
Oh, let's go. Do you have any milk there? Or are you milk drinking?
No, I have water. I probably should. Everybody can see the peanut butter. There we go. It's creamy peanut butter. I prefer the chunky peanut butter. There's the Oreo. Yeah. So for people, this is an Easter egg. Actually, it's a full-on topic. But last week's show, we got interrupted because the EP told me we were out of Oreos, and this led to an Oreo discussion between Jensen and I. And he said that I like to dip my Oreos in peanut butter. And I said, this sounds awful. This sounds disgusting, but I will do it at some point. And at some point is this show, because I'd like to pay off bits on the show and not just randomly in my house or anything. So because I don't really have a great WWE topic, this is the WWE topic. Peanut butter dipped Oreo.
Okay. Now you're going to have to figure out after a few tries kind of what the ratios you like. Because I don't go like I don't put a ton of peanut butter on there, but I get it, enough that it's there. So let's see what you got.
All right, so I'm just gonna kind of like I'm not going too heavy with this. Like, is that a lot?
Well, that's probably good. Take like one bite out of that. Don't eat the whole thing, but like one like a big half a bite there.
It's great audio, just me crunching Oreos.
Oh, I thought you were saying it tasted great. Oh man, I was about to pop big.
All right. I'm not mad at it.
Okay.
Is it something that I'm going to do regularly? Absolutely not. I enjoy just my plain Oreos and milk as is. But I'm not mad at it. All right. I was ready. Yeah. I was even coming in with like, oh, I'm going to hate this. This sounds god awful. But I'm really not that mad at it. I will even have another bite of a peanut butter dipped Oreo.
See, there you go. See, I do it. I don't do it every time I have Oreos, but I do it every now and then just to switch it up. Because I really like Reese's. I like the combination of peanut butter and chocolate a lot. So, and I love Oreos. Like Oreos is like my favorite cookie, probably, as far as like the like mass produced, what you buy in the stores and whatnot. So, I'm glad that you liked it enough that you had a couple bites. All right, that's good. That's better than I expected.
Reese's is my favorite like candy. I'll eat Reese's all day. And yeah, I love Oreos. For some reason, the combination of Oreos and peanut butter never stuck out to me. And again, I was ready to hate this. I was ready to think this was the worst idea in the world. I'm not totally mad at it. So I'll give you credit, Jensen. You win. I don't know what you win, but you have, I don't know if you've discovered it, but you have turned me on to, nobody clipped that. You've turned me on to peanut butter dipped Oreos. All right. No, she refuses, JJ. She absolutely refuses. I'll try, but I'm pretty sure she just ain't doing it.
She even like, I commented under like something that both of y'all had said, and she like responded like almost like angrily, like, don't be talking about peanut butters and Oreo. Like
she's gonna kill me for saying this story on air. That's okay. I found out that she doesn't like the double stuff Oreos, and we nearly came to blows. Like, how does somebody? Because I always get double stuff. I'm like, everybody loves double stuff. Like it's double stuff. I've had the mega stuff. The mega stuff is not good. Like the cookie tastes different, the cream tastes different. I'm not a fan of. Yeah. The ratio way off. So I don't like the mega stuff, but the double stuff is like perfect. Like that is a perfect cookie right there. So I always get double stuff. And then she did the grocery order and she just got regular Oreos. I was like, oh, why'd you get like regular ones? She's like, well, I like those more than the double stuff. I was like, wait, so this is new information to me after dating for a year and a half now. Is like, this is completely new information to me that she likes the regular Oreos over the double stuff. And I nearly kicked her in the fucking head. I'm not lying. Just kicked her. But we hashed it out. We're fine. I can't. Who likes the regular ones over the double stuff, Stephen Jensen?
I don't want to
say
start
you.
A whole conversation.
Do I need to kick you in the fucking head?
Hey, listen. I will take original and double stuff. Like those two, you can't go wrong either way. Like I'm fine with both. If I had my choice between one of the two, I'm going original just because I think that is the perfect ratio of cream to cookie. But the double stuff's good too, though. Like I'm not complaining ever about the double stuff. Now the mega stuff, I totally agree. And a lot of these like random other like flavors they come out with. Like I'm not about like almost any of them. But like yeah, man. I think the original Oreo is. There's a reason they've been selling it like that for so long. And it's been so successful. The
original just doesn't have enough of the cream, though. Like, it needs more. That's why the double stuff are so good.
I'm telling you, dude, you got to do what I told you last week. You take one original Oreo, and then wait, was that original or double stuff?
That was double stuff. No, she ate all the originals. She just went through the whole pack.
Okay. Hey, I respect
like one with me.
I respect it.
I share my double stuff all the time.
So you take one original Oreo, I guess double stuff if you got to double stuff, but you take one, you put some like a nice little layer of peanut butter on top of it, and then you take another one of the Oreos and you make like a mega like 2-stacked Oreo with peanut butter in the middle.
Oh no, see that seems like too much,
dude. And when I do that, and like I'm a big milk drinker. I know it's a divisive topic,
same.
But I'm one of those people that like. I'll dunk my Oreos sometimes, but it's weird. I almost like the feeling of like my mouth getting so like almost dry from eating like these delicious Oreos that like when I take that big gulp of milk, it's like, I don't know. So sometimes I mix it up. Sometimes I just wait until the end and just drink a bunch of milk afterwards.
That's me. Like I will eat and then drink. She is a big, like she dips every single one into the milk. And I don't, the cookie gets too soggy and stuff for me on that. No, I'm eat and drink. She's total dip.
Okay. Well, now that we've gotten our thoughts out there about, I'm glad you tried the peanut butter Oreos though.
WWE is just garbage right now. I can't pretend. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I have anything interesting to say about the product. I do about yours actually, the Bron Breakker stuff, and largely because he came out with what he said to John Alba. But like I can't pretend like I have anything to add to a WWE conversation when the product just does not interest me at all. I'd much rather just talk about Oreo flavors. That's where I'm at with WWE.
Dude, we can stop doing a WWE topic. You know, that would actually kind of be great for me. But you know,
it's bad when it's Mania season. Yeah, it's bad when it's Mania season and we're having this conversation. But like, it's
I can wrap up my Austin thoughts real quick on this too, just to, you know, put it out there. If Steve, like what I'm assuming is what most people are assuming, right? It'll be the KO show, whatever they want to call it. And it'll basically be Steve Austin coming out, maybe a couple punches and kicks, maybe a mud stomp, maybe just go straight to the stunners, maybe just a bunch of stunners. And who knows? If he can do any of the things that I just mentioned, any of them, they should just market this as an actual match. Like, who cares if the bell rings? Like, we saw Goldberg destroy Kevin Owens in like 10 seconds. Like, so what's the difference between having just Steve Austin go out there and hit a stunner and just pin him? And like, that way, at least you're promoting a match versus disappointing everybody with this whole KO show thing.
I think the difference is that Austin might not want this to be an official match if that's all he can do. He strikes me like he's going to get the paycheck regardless. He strikes me as the kind of guy of like, and the Rock match was very good, even though he wasn't in great condition for it. Like, it was story-wise and everything, it was fantastic. But he doesn't want his last match to just be like, hey, kick, wham, stunner type of thing. He has more respect for this business than somebody like Goldberg or these people taking the Saudi money like Shawn Michaels.
I mean, that's fair. And that probably is like exactly because I think I'm with everyone else. I think the only holdup with this not being a match would be Steve Austin. He's probably the only person on earth who's like, but he has his reasons, like you just mentioned. Those are all good reasons to not want to like return to the ring and like kind of, because he has kind of a cool story there too that he's always tells about, like that being his last match with The Rock and people not knowing and it being so good and like him just kind of riding off into the sunset and people not knowing that's what he was going to be doing. And but instead the end of his story would kind of be, well, and then it came back 20 years later and like beat Kevin Owens with one move. And so like technically I won my last match. And then people go, why? You know, I'm with you. But my thing is this. I think that WWE had every intention in the world of trying to get him in there to wrestle Kevin Owens in an actual match. And I think Steve Austin was probably the only holdup in it happening. I'm not saying I'm disappointed by his decision. I'm not saying that I don't want to see Steve Austin do something. Like, it'll be cool to see him at WrestleMania. But I do know people, shout out to Doug once again. I know that Doug, at least he lives in Dallas, so like he's not traveling in, but he bought WrestleMania tickets for both nights once the rumor started that Austin was wrestling again and that Cody Rhodes was going to be there. And I'm like, and now he's really, really disappointed that he's bought 2 tickets.
Look, he's getting Austin. This confrontation, whatever it is going to be very similar to the match they were going to have anyway. It feels like. So I wouldn't be too disappointed about the Austin thing because at least he's showing up. It seemed like there was a possibility like, oh shit, they struck out on Austin. Here's Booker T, here's JBL type of thing, which would have been bad. Cody, I don't know at this point. Raw's in Jacksonville this week, I think. So you think if he's going to show up, it's going to be pretty soon. Otherwise, I don't know when it's going to happen because they're running out of time here with Cody.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if he doesn't show up this Monday, he's not going back to the WWE. I'm pretty dead set on it.
Roads of Honor, baby.
I didn't watch Raw this past Monday. I watched it the 2 previous Mondays. I'll watch it this Monday, but after that, like until he actually shows, I'm not spending my time doing that anymore. But as far as the other thing about the Austin thing, the only thing that bothers me about any of this, and I get why they're doing it, but it's pretty lame that like this is a lot of it is based around this whole I haven't wrestled in 19 years. My last match was 19 years ago, and you're the one pulling me out to get your ass kicked in my hometown. You've been talking trash about Texas, and it's like, we've seen Austin for the last 2 decades come out plenty of times and do exactly what he's going to be doing to Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. Like, this isn't something that he hasn't done in 20 years. Yeah. But to newer wrestling fans, I think that's why you do it, because there's a lot of kids that watch WWE that weren't around when Austin, had his run. So they're actually being tricked into thinking like, this is huge. Austin's going to come out and do the first thing he's ever done in 20 years. It's like, well, we've seen him do this exact thing many times in the last 20 years. So
Stephen Jensen says WWE has tricked kids into believing that Steve Austin is going to do something new when he's just going to do the same stunner he's done for the last 20 years. That's going to be my headline.
You know what would be the funniest thing ever is if Kevin Owens just kicks his ass. Like, it's just like an uncompetitive, just ass kicking. He's like,
that's what should happen. Like, Austin fires up a little bit, and then he realizes he's 60 years old, and Kevin Owens just kicks the shit out of him. That's what should happen. Honestly, put somebody new over. We're gonna see Logan Paul's gonna beat Rey Mysterio. Johnny Knoxville is gonna beat Sami Zayn. Kevin Owens is gonna beat Steve Austin. What other? Ronda's going to win. Brock's going to win. All the part-time celebrities are going to win. McAfee's going to win. They're just going to put over all the part-time people. I have no excitement for WrestleMania this year. They got less than a month to turn this around, and I don't know how they're going to do it, and I don't think they will, and it's a shame. Jensen, you want to talk about Bron Breakker. Why?
Well, because I had to choose the WWE topic this week, and I did see that Bron Breakker had a match on Raw.
Yes, I like how you just freely admitted didn't watch Raw this week. Let's talk about Bron Breakker wrestling on Raw.
Well, no, I watched his match. I went back and I watched what he did. I had heard that he had debuted on Raw, so I went and I watched this tag team match. And then I also watched his match with Ziggler and Ciampa on NXT the next night. So I do know what's going on when it comes to Braun. I know what's going on when it comes to all of this. I just don't care about it. Like I'll go and like actually pay close attention to the stuff we talk about. And it's just coincidental that like the whole him smiling more thing kind of came up in the last few days too. So it kind of made it for a good topic this week. But they took the title off him already. I think he'll just win it back at WrestleMania weekend in a singles match with Dolph. But the reason I'm spotlighting him, to be honest, is, and you would know this better than me, like, does it look like we'll probably get Bron Breakker like on a regular basis on Raw going forward? Or do you think that this is just a way of just trying to get some sort of interest in the NXT show for WrestleMania weekend? And like, that's just pretty much just them advertising it, but it'll still be a while before Breakker is like a part of Raw. And then the other part of the question I have for you is, it's not really a question. It's more so a statement, I guess, for all of us to keep our eyes on. Bron Breakker is going to be one of those first guys, I think, of like showing whether or not NXT 2.0 is going to work with the current setup, because he was definitely treated better than, let's say, Karrion Kross when he debuted on Raw, right? Yeah. We couldn't get much worse, right? But like, but I think this is kind of a good litmus test of like, we'll see what they do with Bron Breakker, because this is one of the first guys that like has a real chance that Vince has had a hand in his whole career from like the developmental all the way through to the main roster. So I just want to throw that out there. I think whatever happens with Bron Breakker is going to be pretty telling on like whether or not this whole kind of experiment is going to work long-term or not with NXT 2.0. But on top of that, I guess, what are your thoughts on, I guess, Breakker being on Raw? And like, is it a long-term thing or just a thing to try to sell this show for WrestleMania weekend?
I think right now it's to sell the show for Mania weekend. I mean, Breakker has said like he doesn't know when he'll be back, probably because he doesn't know when he's going to be back. They do these things so quickly, when they're going to find out that they're going to be there. So I would imagine he probably doesn't know when he'll actually be back on Raw. I think he'll be there through Mania. I'm with you. They'll probably do Ziggler and Breakker at the Stand and Deliver show Mania weekend. It seems like they just put the title back on Breakker there. I think they probably holds it until SummerSlam weekend, and then you kind of make somebody SummerSlam weekend, and then after SummerSlam, you bring Braun up. your point of he's going to be the real big test here is what I'm more interested in, because you're right in that, yeah, when Karrion Kross came up, it was clear they had no design for him. He just came up, he loses to Jeff Hardy in 30 seconds, and then he loses some more, and then he becomes a gimp and a Viking or whatever he was becoming.
Gimp and a Viking, yeah.
I mean, that's what he was wearing, right?
No, I know. Yeah, he had the leather strap thing.
Yeah,
whatever,
so like whatever they were doing. But like, yeah, this is Vince's NXT 2.0. And like, if they're going to make it with Bron Breakker, then they're going to have to make him. Like they've pushed him in 2.0. And it's like, okay, if you're serious about 2.0 and pushing this guy and the main roster 2.0 synergy, when you eventually call him up, you've got to kind of keep going with him and turn him into something. And him saying like he was told to smile more by everybody doesn't give me a ton of hope, because that's what Vince wants to tell everybody for some reason. But he told that to people that he didn't get in the first place. He's had his hands on with Bron Breakker from the very first 2.0 show. I would think that when he eventually comes up to the main roster, he's going to be treated well. Based on history, I don't know why I think that, because the history is certainly not good with the way they treat these guys. But if they're going to do it, Breakker would be the guy to do it with. And if they don't do it with him, it ain't looking good for anybody. They should just shut down the 2.0, because if he can't make it on the main roster and he's going to be treated like he's a black and gold call up and treated the same way, there ain't much hope for anybody else.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you're saying, and that's a big thing too. Is like not only what you just said about like if he can't make it, then like who's going to? It's also almost hard to tell too until we see like, because like if Bron Breakker does make it, then the real question is going to be, is he the only one that's going to make it? Like what happens to the next few people? Because like Bron is like the one dude who is like being heavily spotlighted as the future of like NXT and WWE, and for rightfully so, right? The guy's only had like 30 matches, and he's way better than he has any right to be, and he has the family history and the look and the whole thing, right? Like I totally get why they've chosen him. So like assuming that he is successful, I'm gonna be really interested to see the next few people that like if I think NXT 2.0 will be considered a success if they can do this with Bron Breakker, and then like they can do it again with someone else, and then again with someone else. Like pick another person to do a Bron Breakker type thing with, and if that becomes a thing where they're kind of slowly building new people through NXT, and they kind of highlight one guy or one girl or one of each or whatever, and then you put them in, and it's working. That's I think the big hope. But yeah, like you just said, if things don't work out for Bron Breakker, then like that's going to be bleak for the rest of the people they've got right now, in my opinion.
At least if it does work with him and they show like, hey, we invested in this guy in 2.0 and now we're investing in the main roster, at least that'll give hope for everybody else in 2.0.
Right.
Because I mean, we saw it at the end of Black and Gold. It's like anybody who was calling up was just getting shit on. And I don't know how everybody in that locker room was feeling, but you got the feeling that like, hey, there ain't hope for us on the main roster. Maybe some of them were like, oh, I'll be different. It'll be different with me. But based on the way guys were like leaving and everything and the way they were acting, it's like, oh yeah, like this guy didn't make it. This guy didn't make it. There ain't much hope for us. And it just, you beat down the fan base with that stuff. Cause like anytime they tried to call up anybody to the main roster, the immediate reaction was never like, oh, so excited to see him. It's like, oh fuck, they're going to ruin this guy now. At least if Breakker gets called up and he works out, then when like Carmelo gets called up, it's like, oh, cool. Like there's some hope for Carmelo up here. Like maybe they'll treat him well. And of course they could immediately ruin that very quickly. And it could just be Bron Breakker as the exception and not the rule. But that's why I think you're right in that like, it will be fascinating to see how they treat him when he eventually gets called up. They're off to a decent start with him winning on Raw. They've at least got that portion down. But once he's there full time, they're going to have to prove that this is actually different than the Black and Gold call-ups 2.0. There is some synergy with that in the main roster.
For sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What's the next topic we got?
The other spotlight. So we both went Impact. Impact is heavily featured on the other. We're going to start with yours, and it's going to be Tasha Steelz winning the Impact Knockouts Championship from Mickie James at Sacrifice.
Yes, exactly that. Tasha Steelz won that first ever women's X Division match to get the #1 contender spot, and then she lost her first attempt at Mickie James. And I know there's a lot of people like Jay Shell. I know she's out there. She might be listening. I know she was very, very upset that Tasha had not become the champion. But Tasha gets the big win. Good for her. She's been in the game a long time. Like, people may not realize, she's got a lot of experience. She's a veteran. She's been around for a minute, and she's very talented. And with the way that they pushed her, especially after Kiera Hogan left the company, because I didn't know what was going to happen with Tasha, because I thought that they were the best female tag team. Them, and I like Jordynne Grace and Rachel Ellering a lot too. But as far as I thought Hogan and Steelz were kind of like the backbone, if that makes sense, of the Knockouts division, and of the tag team division for the Knockouts. And I just didn't really know what Tasha Steelz's future was going to look like with Hogan leaving. And she has done great, in my opinion. So I just wanted to give her a shout out on the show today, because she went from someone that could have easily, I think, got lost in the shuffle after her tag team ended, to somebody who's really stood out and got some big wins and looked really good in the ring, and gets a big win over Mickie James, who has, a lot of buzz coming off, the Royal Rumble recently, being in NWA, being in Impact, being kind of all over the place. Mickie James got a lot of buzz still, and for Tasha to get the win on her, I thought meant a lot too. So, personally speaking, it would have been even cooler if she got the win over Deonna. If Deonna would have held the title through this whole time, and Tasha would have been the one to get it from her. But that said, I thought it was really a big moment for Tasha Steelz, and I think she's the right person right now to be the Impact Knockouts champion. So that's why I wanted to bring her up today.
It's going to be, obviously, the follow-up is going to be big. Although the match was good, I understand the story that they were telling with Mickie being concerned with Chelsea, who got her wrist broken beforehand. And then Tasha needed some outside interference and everything. I liked it more than their No Surrender match. I like the sacrifice match a little bit better. Now it will be kind of what's sort of next. I don't know if they do essentially a best of 3 with Mickie, and they go to Rebellion with Tasha and Mickie. I think you could probably extend it that long, do some type of gimmick match at Rebellion. I think that might be even a little bit better, because I think maybe Tasha's maybe more suited, and Mickie as well at this point. I didn't fully like the Texas Death match between Mickie and Deonna, but I didn't think that played to Deonna's strength. I definitely think something like that plays more to Mickie's strengths. And then after Mickie, though, they gotta kind of get somebody in line, because they're putting a lot of focus on the tag division, which is great. But Deonna's still out there, obviously. But then you kind of got 2 heels clashing with Tasha and Deonna. They got to get someone in line for Tasha after Mickie, is what I'm kind of really seeing. As far as Tasha goes, she's great. She's a star. There was, like you said, after Kiera left, okay, what are we going to do? She immediately came in with Savannah, kind of got aligned with her, which kept her momentum going, which was good. She won Ultimate X, which is obviously a huge win. I was glad that after she lost that No Surrender, it wasn't just an immediately dropped thing. It's okay, what are we doing? They kept going. And JJ said it, they actually pulled the trigger on this. It would have been very easy to just kind of kept riding with Mickie, and then at Rebellion, you just do Deonna and Mickie again for reasons, and go from there. I'm interested to see who Dan says Lady Frost in that spot. That's a good shout right there. They had the names. There's no doubt they have the names. They just gotta find someone to commit to be in that spot to challenge Tasha, whether it's coming out of, because I haven't read the spoilers, whether it's coming out of Sacrifice or whether it's coming out of Rebellion, if they do Mickie and Tasha one more time at Rebellion.
Yeah, I like the idea of Lady Frost. That is a good shout. And they always got Jordynne Grace, even though, I've said before, I want Jordynne Grace to be involved in the main titles, the world title and the X Division title personally. But because she's kind of been there, done that with the Knockouts title a couple times. But they always they got so many good women on that roster. And then also, just speaking of not knowing the spoilers, it was so hard during our Crockett Cup. Because I had done the spoilers for the Weekender, so I knew that OGK was getting out in the first round.
Oh, yeah. See, I didn't.
Yeah.
I was all in. I was I see them winning.
The Fixers beat them in the first round. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know this. I remember when, my God, is that the real Chris Van Vliet?
Chris, what's up, man?
Make
if
it
that is the
count.
real Chris, good to see you, man. Big fan over here.
Yes, Van Vliet rules. Always listen to his stuff. I'm sure everybody checks out his interviews, but if you haven't, then go check out Insight with Chris Van Vliet. Go check out his YouTube channel and the podcast. But the spoilers. I'd not read the spoilers, obviously, because I would not have put myself out there that much. Like, OGK, and then really look stupid. Instead, I just really look stupid because I was like, I could really see them, and I bought that they'd really do it. And I did the results for that show. And when I saw that they had lost, I was like, oh shit, I completely missed on that one.
Well,
bracket busted immediately.
Well, I played it straight too, where
you didn't tip that at all.
Yeah. I didn't want to ruin it for any of the viewers who didn't know or you. So that's one of the things with the Weekender. If y'all, ever want to check that out on FightfulSelect.com, that's every Sunday. And when there's big, tapings for spoilers for NWA and Impact and MLW, really anyone who pre-tapes their shows, that is a part of the show. Is I always go through those spoilers and give my thoughts before they air. So I had already done that before we had recorded our Crockett Cup. But yeah, that was just want to throw that out there. To talk about spoilers, but yeah, and what your Impact Wrestling spotlight this week is a big one. Josh Alexander back to Impact Wrestling. So give me your thoughts on all this with Josh Alexander.
He re-signed a multi-year deal. He's gonna take on Moose at Rebellion. They paid it off, and JJ mentions it is Josh Alexander was on Listen Your Boy yesterday. Yep. JJ was the true star of that interview because his questions got read, and he's the one who got the scoops out of that with Alexander re-signing, and then also learning that Josh Alexander was apparently supposed to be in the crowd at an AEW event before Bound for Glory, as one sort of like what Camille did with Layla Hirsch, where it's like, oh, this person, Josh Alexander, is going to be challenging Christian for the Impact World title at Bound for Glory. But apparently Christian got hurt, and so they didn't do a match. So they didn't do Alexander at ringside. But JJ asked the question, and they got that scoop there. So shout out to JJ. Alexander returned. Thank God. Thank God they're going to let this play out. Thank God they have some type of ending to this, because it was very troubling when Alexander lost the title. I still don't think this was the play to put the belt on Moose. I think Moose, his run, the man faced Cardona, Morrissey, and Heath. This run has been awful. It's not his fault. He's just been given these WWE guys in Impact who are treated like WWE guys in Impact. It's Cardona's weakest territory. That's not on Moose. They should have had better challengers line up. But clearly they were stalling until they could play out the Josh Alexander angle, which is fine. Alexander coming back, sticking with Impact. I'm assuming he's winning the title at Rebellion. If they don't, they're complete idiots. But it's a big get. It's a big keep for Impact because Alexander could have gone anywhere. He could have thrived anywhere. Probably would have gotten lost in the shuffle in a couple of places. Impact, he can continue to be a very big fish because I think we're both assuming he's winning that title at Rebellion. So he's going to be at the top of the mountain come the end of April with the championship. So good on Alexander. It seems like he got paid as well. That's always a good thing. And good on Impact for keeping him.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. If Alexander doesn't beat Moose for the title, this is really all for nothing. All of it.
Gotta think of the heat, Jensen.
Because when you go back, you think about when Alexander started really getting his push, after Ethan Page left and went to AEW. And, he had that X Division run that was really good. He had I always bring this up because people forget, but he had that great Iron Man match with TJP, and he had some really, really good matches with that championship. And he held the title for quite a while. And then he cashed it in with Option C, and then he won the world title. And then Moose beats him right away. And now we're going to hopefully get back to the point where, okay, now Alexander gets his revenge, he gets the title back, and he goes on a long title run, because otherwise, like I said, this is all for nothing, because it's damn, you had this opportunity with this guy, great X Division run. He was the right guy. The fans wanted it. And then he resigns with the company and they don't put the title on him. Then it's what are they doing? What was the point of all of this? I feel the main reason why you would want to stay in Impact and everything involved in this is this is all revolving around Alexander being the Impact World Champion. He earned it. He deserved it. Moose's title run, you're right, it hasn't been good. And I was a guy for quite a while that said that they should probably put the title on him. Now, granted, that would have been, if you would have beat like Kenny for it, I'm not saying that's a good or a bad idea. I'm just saying if you would have beat Kenny for it, we're probably having a totally different conversation because it would have had so much buzz in the wrestling world and he could have had matches against different people and all this stuff. And instead, it was like basically a cheap, almost fluke kind of win to win the title from TJP. And then the Cardona match, like I love Matt Cardona, but like it was, the match just was what it was. It wasn't great. And then, the Morrissey thing, you're right. It just hasn't really worked. And part of it's the opponents. Heath, I mean, who can get excited for Heath versus Moose for the world title? Outside of Heath, I'm sure Heath was real excited about it, but outside of that, I'm just like, so it's just one of those things where, you're right. I hate to be this frank about it, like this brash about it, but like Impact, they're idiots if they don't put the world title on Josh Alexander when he wrestles Moose. Like it would make no sense.
They are.
Yeah.
Like it would be. They've had a lot of misfires over the years. I think him losing it like he did to Moose at Bound for Glory was a misfire. They can at least right that wrong and really make good by having him win it at Rebellion. And if they don't, I don't think they're going to have much faithful fans left. JJ might be the one. Like he's going to be the only person at the Impact tapings, like a Uso, just holding up one finger because he's the one fan left if Alexander doesn't win the title. Yeah.
And that's unfortunate when you have this company where like the women are so good and the X division is so good and the tag team stuff, like that's kind of hit or miss depending on the teams involved, but like there's a lot of talent there and stuff. And it just kind of feels like the Impact World title just gets really, like when Kenny was holding it, it was a big deal because it was Kenny and like the belt collector and the Forbidden Door and all the exciting stuff that came along with it. But like, it's been far too long where it's been dudes like Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan, and now like the Moose run hasn't been good, and it's just they gotta mix it up. And Alexander is clearly the right guy. So
I'll say this for Impact. I probably get a bad rap for not paying attention to Impact or bashing Impact and stuff. I've liked a lot of their stuff lately. The Eddie Edwards turn and aligning with Honor No More, that whole invasion has been good. The Tasha Steelz winning the title has been very good. Now I'm gonna out myself because Jay White, the Jay White and Alex Shelley match was fucking aces from the sacrifice. For some reason, which maybe I should have expected it to be good, but like Jonah and PCO, that match fucking banged. Like now multiverse in multiverse of matches at WrestleMania weekend, which is the show Impact is running. They got the Ultimate X match. They got Ishii against Eddie Edwards. They got Jay White against Chris Sabin. They get the Purrazzo doing an open challenge. Like this looks like a really good card for Impact during WrestleMania weekend. And then Rebellion, like you've already got Alexander most likely winning the title from Moose. We'll see what else is on that card, but that's a big moment. Impact feels sort of hot right now when a lot of times they are just kind of going through the motions, or even if they feel hot, they're not really that hot. Good Brothers losing the tag belts was certainly overdue.
And they lost to a good team. Doring and Eric Young are great.
Yeah, like Impact feels like they've got some momentum right now, and I hope for their sake they can actually capitalize on that, because we all want all these companies to succeed and have places to work and everything. Nobody likes watching bad wrestling or wrestling they can't get invested into. I've spent a portion of this just talking about WWE and wasting my WWE spotlight because I don't have anything interesting to say about WWE because I don't find their television interesting. I don't want companies to be like that. I don't want to feel that way about companies. So good on Impact for letting me invest into something with what they're doing right now.
Yeah. Well, and imagine like everything you just said, put on top of it, you have like a fresh, exciting, great in the ring world champion.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? That's like the one thing I feel like they're really missing is just like, and once again, people have their opinions of Moose. I get it. But like, I was definitely one of the people that wanted to see him get a world title run. But it's just the way that it all happened, they shot themselves in the foot in a lot of ways with all of this.
it was the way it happened, and I don't put a lot of this on Moose because it's very tough to carry programs with Impact Cardona, and then Heath, and then W Morrissey. Like those are just not the programs people want to see. All right. And they tried, Cardona tried, especially with the Chelsea stuff, Chelsea taking chair shots back for the girls and everything. Like they tried with that stuff. It just wasn't programs that people wanted to see. That's really what it comes down to. And now you have the Alexander program where you can kind of sink your teeth into it because of what they did at Bound for Glory. So I don't put it all on Moose as the champion. He has to take some responsibility because the champion just has to. But it's not all on him. The company's gotta book him better in certain instances. Just like, you know, when Big E has a shitty run, I don't put all that on him. He was booked like shit, and some stuff is gonna fall on him just because he's the champion. Some of the stuff he just can't help. Moose, you can't help if you're working with Heath and W Morrissey. All right.
Yeah.
Indie Spotlight, Stephen Jensen. Mine this week, I listened to an interview with Atticus Cogar, formerly of GCW. It was with Gregory Iron. They're running mates in 444 OH.
440.
Yeah, 440. Sorry. I knew you'd correct me on that. They're running mates there. And it's an Iron On podcast. And Cogar announced that he was leaving, or he has left GCW. And he really detailed like why. And the big thing of it was sort of the booking. He thought he did say that like the booking wasn't the main portion. He said he didn't have like too big of an issue with that. A lot of it was coming down to, he said the toxic locker room was a big thing. With people with the drug use and everything like that, and his mental health wasn't good. He did talk about the booking, specifically the Hammerstein show, where he cut a promo where he was unhappy that the originals didn't really get a spot that they should have deserved. And we talked about this on this show and on other shows, was like, oh, Ruby's going to win, Jeff Jarrett's going to win. You have Cardona on the show, which Cardona kind of become a GCW guy. But the guys who had kind of bled buckets for that company over the years, they were not as featured. I mean, Nick Gage wasn't advertised at all. We didn't know if Nick Gage was going to show up until he finally showed up. But he was not happy about that. He cut a promo saying as much. And then he said that they never shared that or anything like that. And then it sounded like he was supposed to do something with more ECW legends. It was just Sabu. Jensen, you know more about Cogar's kind of story and history with GCW than I do. I find this fascinating because basically a chunk of why he left is what a lot of people talked about coming out of Hammerstein, is that it did not feel like an authentic GCW thing. And we wondered if there would be any type of backlash from that, from like fans and stuff. Like, oh, what do fans think about this? And fans were very mixed on it. Now it seems like there's some backlash with people in the locker room with Cogar just outright leaving. Like, what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on it. Like, so first of all, just for anybody who cares or who might be there, I'll be at GCW this Saturday here in Atlanta at Center Stage. And if you're a wrestler, I'll reach out to some wrestlers too, but I'll try to get some quick audio interviews while I'm there as well, like I did at Terminus. So anyone who hears this, if you see me at the show, say what's up. I love meeting people who, watch wrestling and like Fightful and all that stuff. So as far as all this, man, there's a lot of layers to it to give a little backstory of like why Atticus Cogar is kind of in the spot he's in before he left, I guess, is like, he was kind of like the sidekick to Ricky Shane Page, RSP. RSP was the longtime GCW world champion. He beat AJ Gray for the title literally minutes after AJ Gray had beaten Nick Gage for the title. This is like almost probably between 2 and 3 years ago now already.
Yeah.
But because RSP had the title for like 18 months before losing it to Nick Gage at last year's spring break. So anyways, RSP pretty much left GCW as well last year. And part of that, I don't really know why. Like, part of it is probably has to do with like he's not really doing death matches anymore, and also like they might not really know what to do with him going forward, because like he was the champion for 18 months. Like, where do you really go from there? I don't know what all led to RSP leaving, but when he did, Atticus really kind of became the on-air leader of 440 in GCW. There's still a group in other indies. Like, you still see RSP with Cogar and Iron and Eric Ryan and all these other guys, Eddie Only, these guys, like when they're out and about on the indies, the Bev, Bobby Beverly. But the reason it's so confusing is because Atticus really seemed prime to like be the GCW World Champion. Like he really, they left a lot on the table with him going against RSP. Like we never got to see that. And then he was heavily featured all year for Game Changer Wrestling. Like one of the biggest feuds in the last handful of months was him and Jordan Oliver feuding, and Nick Wayne was involved in that as well. And it was like this big, huge feud that they had that kind of ended like right before Hammerstein. So I was really, really confused when Atticus Cogar didn't have a match at Hammerstein. But then part of it is like, because of the venue being that venue, there's a lot of stuff they just can't do there that you'd normally see on a GCW show. And Atticus is really his like signature move is taking, this is going to sound very graphic to people who aren't expecting to hear about this, but he takes a fistful of green meat skewers, like wooden meat. They're either wooden or plastic meat skewers. And he takes them and he puts them in his opponent's foreheads and he pops them into their heads. So these are hanging out of their heads. And sometimes they'll do like bundles of them and they'll say people got antlers and stuff. But that's like a big part of his act is popping people in the head with these skewers. So right there, like you can't even do that in Hammerstein right there. Like his number one kind of move, he's not even able to do there. So like I understood probably reasons why maybe he wasn't on the Hammerstein show, but there's ways to get around that. Like he doesn't have to hit the skewers. Like he's super over with the crowd. He's a fantastic heel, but he's a guy who has a lot of upside, I think, as a baby face also eventually. So like they're just leaving so much on the table without Atticus there. Like I really thought he was going to be one. Like I think AJ Gray will probably be the next GCW World Champion potentially. He got a good shot at it. But outside of that, I would have said Atticus is probably like the first guy I would think would be one of the next GCW World Champions. The locker room stuff I can't really speak to. But what I will say is GCW, like they're the outlaws, right? Like they're the company that's always talking about like doing it their own way. They had that whole thing with IWTV that got messy. Like there's a lot of stuff like, so they kind of carry themselves as a company who like really doesn't give a whatever about what people think, about what they do, how they do it. I'm not saying that makes their locker room a certain way or a certain type of people work there or whatever. My point is, it doesn't like you hear the stories about like the ECW locker room, right? And like I'm not saying that is what's happening in GCW, but that's kind of what Atticus was kind of saying, right? Like he was like, there are things going on with some of the wrestlers that are here on a regular basis where like I'm in recovery and like I don't want to be around it, which is fair. Right. So it's hard for me to speak to any of like the personal issues he has with GCW because that's like behind closed doors, backstage between him and Brett type stuff. But what I will say is from a fan who's like heavily invested in the product, it was very confusing to see his lack of use at Hammerstein. And even he said like it was supposed to be all these ECW originals, but it wound up just being Sabu. And like it feels like Atticus does have a point in my honest opinion about the point he's making about all these wrestlers who literally bled buckets for this company to get to the point of being on Hammerstein. A lot of them getting pushed to the side in favor of like the Jeff Jarrett's of the world. So as a fan of GCW, it's disappointing, but it won't like detract me from watching the show. Like I'm going to have a blast on Saturday and I'm going to keep supporting their product, but I'm also going to support Atticus, like whatever he does next, because he's been killing it on the indies this whole time outside of GCW. And it's just really, really unfortunate that they left so much on the table for him and for the company. So
Atticus, I believe he's going to be involved in, I want to make sure the name right. He's going to be involved in a promotion, Circle 6. They're having their debut event March 19th. I don't know specifics if that's airing on Big Fight or anything like that, but that's his kind of deal. And I have a story kind of running on that probably this weekend. I'll post that. But as far as I don't know the whole story with Cogar and like his whole GCW history and stuff. Like you said, I'm not comment on the locker room or guys not getting paid. I think you said Eddie only wasn't paid for like Hammerstein or paid for a show, anything like that. I don't know any of that stuff. I thought he made points when it comes to the hammer sign stuff. And he said, like, I told Brett, like, I want to be one of these GCW guys. Like, I want to be known for like being at this company. And he also said, like, Brett kind of sees his shiny new toy and he wants to go play with that. Like Cardona comes in. Okay, that'll pop people. Jeff Jarrett comes in, that'll pop people. You know, you can use Homicide, you can use Moxley. And like these guys came in and they certainly helped GCW. They got a lot of attention for GCW, but to a lot of guys in the locker room, you have to consider how they're feeling of like, hey, we've been here busting our ass doing all this. Why are we getting pushed to this battle royal and they're taking spots away from us? And then to further that is like, not only are they taking spots away from us, they're beating our guys. Like Ruby's coming in here and beating one of our top female. Jarrett's coming in here and beating one of our top males. Cardona is kind of GCW at this point, but he's beating Janela and everything. Like, I can imagine how that doesn't sit well with guys who not are just like doing, hey, you're in kind of a scramble match, you're in a cool position and stuff. Like I've seen some of his stuff. You mentioned the skewer thing. He does that in a lot of the matches. Like that man is bleeding buckets for the company. And I know that 44-0, right? Is that right?
440, yeah.
440, sorry.
They're from Ohio, OH.
I know, like yeah. Ohio
area
sucks.
Code.
Ohio's horrible. Who could possibly live in Ohio? 440, I know that like they are a big part of GCW. And the Ricky Shane Page stuff, that was a big feud with Nick Gage. Like Lauderdale got involved in that feud and everything. So I know that was a big thing. And I know Ricky Shane Page has not been on a lot of the shows recently. He seems to be pretty much gone from the company as well. So it was even surprising when like he wasn't involved, but a little bit more understandable because he had been kind of off for a little while. It's going to happen when a company grows. GCW in Lauderdale, maybe this will be some sort of a wake up call of like, hey, we should kind of treat our original guys and the guys who are more full-time, like give them a little bit more prominent positions on these bigger shows and rely less on, hey, we've got this guy to pop the rating or to pop the town or anything like that. Because like that stuff's always going to be there, but GCW was built on guys like Gage, like Janela, RSP, and that kind of style, that outlaw style. And less, even though they did have guys come in and pop, it was never built fully on that kind of stuff. So hopefully it's some sort of wake up call to them.
Yeah. And he said it in the interview as well, about how GCW also has kind of been evolving, if you will, to where like there's still death matches, but like that isn't like the heavy singular focus of their shows. Like it's like you usually get like maybe one or two like pretty ultra violent death matches a show. Sometimes no death matches at all, but like that's also one of those things. Some of these guys really love doing the death matches. And I know Atticus is one of those guys. So like, you know, maybe not only is he having a hard time just getting on the show in general with some of these stories and other people coming in and stuff, but it's like, it makes his opportunities even slimmer. Cause like, if he wants to do death matches, you're talking like 1 or 2 opportunities a show, maybe to do that versus like the other, you know, 5-10 matches or whatever on the card that aren't death matches. You know what I mean? It just feels like his opportunity just might not be what it was before, unfortunately. And I hate it, by the way, because I'm a big Atticus fan. I really like that guy. And I wanted to see him be the GCW World Champion, but yeah, it's a bummer that he's left the company. It's a bummer for the company. It's a bummer for him, you know, as a fan.
And your indie spotlight is Jaden Newman winning the SUP Bonestorm Championship from AJ Gray this past weekend.
Yes, he did. He won in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Saudi Daisy, to be exact, Saudi Daisy High School, which is his alma mater, which is really cool. The SUP company runs out of Nashville, Tennessee. I always call them like a sister company where you have like SUP, Action, and SCI kind of all work hand in hand together. So Jaden, yeah, it was really, really cool to see him get that W. And I don't really have to elaborate on it too much because we have an interview coming up with him. We're going to talk about all this stuff, but yeah, shout out to Jaden Newman, a guy I've been following for years who started wrestling. I mean, he'll tell his story, but, you know, got in a ring at 14 years old, wanted to at 10 years old. But, you know, now he's 23. So he's a young veteran. He's been wrestling for around a decade already, still only 23 years old. And This SUP Bonestorm Championship, definitely, at least in my opinion, and I think he'd agree, the biggest championship of his career up to this point. So yeah, big, and of course for that also being over AJ, AJ heading into spring break to wrestle Mox for the GCW World Title, like, so to get a W over AJ, like, that's a big deal. And on top of that, I could see why, like, AJ is doing a lot of stuff on the West Coast now. He's really heavily involved in GCW. He's kind of all over the map now. So, like, it was probably a combination of, like, Jaden being the right guy at the right time. And also, like, it's, SUP probably doesn't have access to AJ like they used to, because he's just kind of all over the place and has other commitments now. So, like, I'm really, really happy that Jaden was the one to beat him for that title and be the new champion.
Guys, if you haven't seen this match, it took place at the Scenic City Rumble this weekend, and Jensen, as he always does, in the indie spotlight, he picks something that I don't know too much about, and then I check it out and I learn a little bit, and then so I watch this match. People who have watched AJ Gray matches, I imagine our audience is a little bit more familiar with AJ over Jaden, and the man hits very hard, and I'm watching him destroy Jaden with these chops and strikes. And Jaden actually, in this interview, he shows us his chest following the weekend. So we recorded this on Tuesday. So he's fresh off of this match. He said he wrestled 3 matches over the weekend. He wrestled Thursday. He wrestled Dominic Guarini on Friday. And then he wrestled AJ Gray on Saturday. Tuesday, he showed us what his chest looked like after this run of matches. It was brutal. I don't know why the people do this to themselves, but God bless them. But yeah, I thought it was a fantastic match. I learned a little bit about Jaden, not only through the matches that I watched this weekend, but through this interview here. Like you said, too much to add as far as him winning the title, because he's going to add plenty to the story here. He's going to talk us all through winning the title, what it was like wrestling at his alma mater, his high school, going to teachers and being like, "Fuck you, I got this title now. You told me I wouldn't make it," and plenty other fun stuff with Jaden. So we're going to throw to our interview right now with Jaden Newman, the SUP Bonestorm champion.
Welcome to the interview portion of the Spotlight here on Fightful. I am Stephen Jensen, as always, with Jeremy Lambert. And today we have joining us the brand new Southern Underground Pro Bonestorm champion, Jaden Newman. Thanks for joining us, man. We got to talk a little bit before we got started here, but how you doing, dude?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, we had a nice little conversation on the way back from work. Staying busy as always, but I'm excited to get to speak with you again. And I'm excited to just be on here with y'all and talk some wrestling.
Yeah, well, we haven't talked in a while, but I remember interviewing you. I mean, it was already years ago on the Fight Talk podcast, but even before then, I don't know if you remember this, Jaden, but I talked to you in person at the SCI when you were there as a fan, but you were wrestling, but you were telling me then, you were like, "Man, one of my biggest goals," it might have been your biggest goal in wrestling, was just to get on the SCI tournament. Like, that was like a massive thing for you. And we were just sitting there, just standing with you, as a fan, watching it as it was happening. And now fast forward a few years, you are a staple of Chattanooga wrestling. You're training people at TWE. You're running shows. You're the champion of SUP. I mean, you're my favorite to win the SCI this year. Hopefully you win I think you're going to win the whole tournament this year. So, like, do you remember that, though, talking to me like that long ago?
I do. We were up there at the top of the stairs, closest to the bathroom. See, I remember the high school very well, obviously, because it was my alma mater. But no, I remember the conversation, and it's so wild to think where we are now, say 2 years ago. I mean, we've made it through a pandemic, and wrestling has completely changed since then. People that were in that tournament have now went on to get signed, have gone on to do bigger, better things. Some aren't wrestling anymore. Like, it's wild. Pro wrestling is the wild, wild west right now. So to be able to have accomplished those goals since the last time we talked is like super important to me. And it's like very exciting to be able to come back on here and reflect, almost 2 years to the day.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
You had 2 matches this weekend. Against Dominic Guarini and AJ Gray. Different matches, but the one thing that was similar in that is that you got the shit kicked out of you by both. And I say that in the nicest way possible, but like,
of course,
they were, a lot of heavy strikes from both men. And I just got to know, how's your chest feeling after both of these matches? Because it looked rough against AJ.
For the visual portion, do y'all want to see it?
Yes.
All right, I got you. Hold on.
I saw this night of, and it looked gnarly, but oh
man.
Yeah. Oh man. That's been away for a minute.
I know AJ Gray hits hard, and you wrestled him one night after wrestling Guarini, and that just seems like something I would not want to do. So bless you for doing that.
And like, here's the thing too, like it doesn't get seen a lot, but I do a show on Thursdays as well called Galaxy Pro. So I had wrestled in a 4-way match, Galaxy Pro on Thursday, wrestled Dom on the Friday, and then wrestled AJ on Saturday. So like I was going into my 3rd match of the weekend, completely worn out, tired, already beaten and battered, ready to get battered up some more. It was, God bless. I put too much on my plate, and I admit it, but I wouldn't have it any other way, you know. This, like the marks and the scars that potentially come from these matches sometimes, like that makes me feel alive. That makes me sometimes, you know, have like these weird out-of-body experiences that like only professional wrestling can give you, you know. It's better than any drug that I've ever taken, mainly because I've never done any drugs. So, I mean, there's nothing like it. So that's why this stuff is so cool to me, even though it hurts like hell, but pain is only temporary.
Well, and one of those things that I'm sure hurt like hell. I mean, I know your adrenaline's going in the moment, but like that clothesline AJ hit you with, like towards the end of your match, like that got gift all over the place. Like, oof, that dude hits hard as hell. And that, of course, happened in Saudi Daisy High School, which is the same building that we were just talking about when me and you talked, you know, years back, your alma mater. So let's just kind of cut to it. Then we'll kind of go over the place. But you winning the Southern Underground Pro Bonestorm Championship in your alma mater, your old high school, in front of your friends and family, a company that I remember you telling me on a podcast, you know, years ago that you weren't even allowed to do the first SUP show that you were invited to because you were too young to actually even get into the building. Yeah. So now you're the champion of the company, and you got to do it in your own, you know, in front of your people. And there's the Bonestorm title, the prestigious Bonestorm Championship. So yeah, man, give us your thoughts on that moment, because not only did you win the title, you beat AJ Gray, who's, you know, heading into, you know, GCW spring break, you know, wrestling Moxley, and I mean, you get this big win in front of your people, man. What was going through your mind as it all happened?
Everything was so hectic at the moment. I genuinely had no clue what to do. Like, I pulled that victory out of my ass. Like, that's why I got the hell out, because we all know what AJ's capable of. I mean, hell, I felt what he was capable of for like however long the match was. So I didn't know how to feel in that moment. I was genuinely shocked that I was able to put him away, because like that's a pretty heavy feat. You know, AJ was the Southern Underground Pro Bonestorm champion for so long for a reason. And we all know his track record. We all know the things that he's done, the people he's beat. So to be on a list of people that was able to defeat him, like, it's something like I hold pretty near and dear to my heart, because I have a lot of respect for AJ, and I hope after that match he does for me as well. And I also just respect the legacy of the Bonestorm Championship as well. So to be able to hold the title for a promotion that's so near and dear to my heart, being the place, the Basement East I speak on, where I literally got to meet my wife's family for the first time, where I proposed to my wife, where I learned and I grew as a wrestler, where I made so many like friends and connections. It genuinely meant so much. So it's kind of a bittersweet moment that it wasn't able to happen at the Basement East, but obviously the sweet comes from doing it in my hometown, at my alma mater, with my family there. I mean, this is crazy. My dad showed up, and I had no clue my dad was going to be there. My dad's only seen me wrestle 3 times. So whenever I saw him, and if you go back and watch it on IWTV, whenever I make my entrance, I walk over to the left side of the gym, and you see me like kind of point and like startle and then like walk the other way because I saw my dad, and I was like, oh, wow. So, my dad got to see like a really cool moment in my career, as well as like my grandfather, my mom, like my wife, friends, and like extended family in Saudi Daisy. So that's what made the moment so cool. And then, to top it all off, like Jax Dane presenting me with the belt, like that was crazy. Jax is someone that like we don't really speak on it much, but has been very much a mentor to me. So it genuinely meant the world to me. And I don't think that they're, at least for now, I don't think that there's a moment that can top it. I'm sure there will be soon, but for right now, I'm just riding the high.
When did you know you wanted to become a wrestler? Because being back in high school, I you can answer this, but like I would imagine, okay, I want to be a wrestler at this point, and now you're in your high school and you're winning the title there. When did it hit you that you want to become a wrestler? Was it high school? Was it before that?
It was way before then, actually. So I think the moment I wanted to become a wrestler was actually whenever I was 8 years old. So I had I'd been a fan of wrestling, obviously. I think I was like 6 or 7 whenever I got into like being a fan. And I would always go to the flea market on the weekends. My grandfather would take me, and I would go to the wrestling booth. I'd always get like 1 or 2 DVDs. That was always the thing. So I ended up getting a Rey Mysterio DVD, and I watched his like little, documentary that WWE would do. And then I saw the match of Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero at Halloween Havoc. And it was from that moment on, I went, this is what I want to do. So for years and years and years, then whenever I started going to like indie shows, I was like, how do I get into this? How do I get into this? And then eventually the place I would begin my training at in Ringgold, Georgia was like, all right, you're obviously too young now. And I think I asked at the age of like 10. They were like, but when you turn 14, if you really want to do this, as long as someone signs like, the proper forms for legal reasons, I'll train you to be a wrestler. So for those like 3 or 4 years I had to wait, I was enrolled into breakdance and tumbling. So that was like kind of like what would give me like that little bit of a taste of if I really wanted to do it. And I think it also was like a way for like my family to make sure that like I was serious about it, because if I was going to buckle down to something that would like potentially help, then they'd be willing to help however they could. So that's what happened. They obviously realized there was no like letting off the gas pedal. And whenever I turned 14, there it was. I was starting my freshman year of high school, and then the rest of it's history.
Man, you mentioned just a second ago it being somewhat bittersweet winning the title only because it didn't happen in the Basement East, but it was sweet because it happened at Daisy. But I was actually talking to John Mosley earlier today, who we both know, and I actually said the same thing. I was like, man, that would have been really cool for him to win it in the Basement East. And like, but at the same time, I was like, pretty much all the same people I feel like that watch SUP are also watching SCI, and they're also watching Action. So I think all the fans who follow SUP saw that win anyways. If that makes sense. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's not like you're showing back up to the Basement East and people are going to be like, wait, Jaden's the champion. Like, we're going to know you're the champion by the time you show up. So, yeah. And then on top of that, the last thing you said with you starting at 14 years old, I'd have to imagine that's probably inspiring to what, because how old are you now? Early 20s, right?
Yeah, I'm
23 now. So, and now, we see these teenagers like, Starboy Charlie and Billy Starks and Marcus Mathers and like these younger kids. Like, I remember thinking when I first heard that you had started so young, thinking like, wow, that's bizarre. Someone starting in wrestling that young, but now we're kind of seeing it a little more often. Like, how do you now? Yeah. How do you feel like, was there anyone else around your age when you started that was around your age that's like still doing it, or like were you kind of the only, you were like the youngest one for like a while, right?
Yeah, so there was one other person I knew of, and it was someone that I was actually training while I was training. Because I had a yard, or I had a yard. I had a ring in my backyard, and I had a best friend. Y'all may remember him if y'all followed any Southeastern wrestling, but Bailey Blake.
Yep.
That's been my best friend literally since we were in, middle school, 6th grade. So, I would literally come home and I would like go to the ring and I'd hit Bailey up and I'd be like, yo, do you want to like come over and like, let's wrestle? So, because we bonded because of TNA. So he came over and like, I would like teach him stuff, and we ended up going to like our first seminar together, which was super funny because he was technically not in the business, but like I was still training and was kind of in. So we ended up going there, and that's where we learned like, basic holds, like in our first spot. We thought it was so cool. So like Bailey was one of like the first ones. And then obviously Kinsey Page Henry. But she came along whenever I was about 4 or 5 years in.
Yeah, being in your high school again, sorry, I feel weird asking this, but here we go.
No, you're good.
No. So when you're in high school and you knew that people or you knew you wanted to be a wrestler, did your teachers ever be like, you're not going to do it, you're not going to do it? And then when you win the title in the high school, do you go back there to your teachers and be like, I got this, like, I've it's over, I've done this, I got this title? Do you rub it into your teachers' faces if they told you you can't do this, like you're just not going to be a wrestler? And did any teacher actually say that to you?
So that's actually a really good question. That's not weird at all, because Eric Royal asked me a similar question this past Saturday at the Rumble.
Okay.
So we were sitting there and Eric was like, yo, like, this is your alma mater, right? I was like, yeah. He goes, man, that's crazy to be back, ain't it? I said, yeah, it is, considering the fact that all my teachers literally told me I would never graduate. So, and now I'm there like doing a fundraiser for the school and raising money for the community for them. So it was kind of a funny flex, I thought. But no, it was in a way, yeah. Like it's nice to be able to be like, rub it in their face, but like in the same sense, to me, like that's not as important, because like the people that did support me, because there were teachers that did support me, like they were there, and that was like super cool to like kind of like show them that like, yeah, like I wasn't at school a lot, this is why I wasn't at school, because I was working for a moment like this. And that was literally what made it worth it, is to potentially like have them come into school on like Monday, whenever SCI is like long gone and done, like the weekend's passed, everything's calmed down, and normally on a Monday your teacher will ask, oh, how was everyone's weekend? Well, this is what I got to do. I got to watch one of my former students that used to go to school here win a major wrestling championship in this school. So that's kind of the cool thing, and hopefully like it can like motivate like kids to want to chase after what they're going for, regardless of like what they're being told in like school.
Did they get the day off on Monday? Like Jaden Newman Day?
I think they should. I've been petitioning for it. Started Tuesday.
Well, speaking of teachers, you yourself are now a teacher, Jaden, because you train kids up at TWE. I hear it all the time now, where it's like you're gaining really like a strong reputation as like really training people like the right way. And I had heard, if you want to elaborate on it, you may have got some like bad advice yourself kind of early in your career and had to like kind of refocus and reassess over the years yourself. But how you can speak to that if you'd like to, and also kind of what goes into your own motivation of training new wrestlers yourself.
So that's a really good point you made there. Early on, I was given like some really bad advice, obviously, and was maybe trained in a way that wasn't necessarily the norm of like wrestling today. Whenever I first started training, like we would stand in the corner and take chops, or like we would have to take 10 back bumps on concrete before we left. But now, I've taken from where maybe it was a negative, and I found a way to like teach positively without like all the maybe like harsh language or even like harsh teaching methods. Because I do believe in a sense, like you have to instill like respect into people that want to join professional wrestling. Like they really have to like understand and really like gather what they're getting themselves into. But I feel like there's a way to do it in which doesn't make you an asshole. So that was why whenever I began training people, which by the way, just kind of happened, like it fell into my lap. Whenever the person who was doing training at TWE, like, and just walked out and was just done. And I was like, well, like, here I am. What do I do? Like, I kind of had to spring into action. So, that was probably the best thing that could have happened though, for not only them, but for me as well, because it made me like really go out there and get the knowledge I needed to do. So like that was what made me like really attend seminars all the time and like read as much about wrestling as I could, whether it be the history or the technique. So that way, like I could instill that into my kids and the people that I've trained. So that way it's done the right way. And the right way is obviously subjective because nothing is right in professional wrestling. But I at least try to duplicate what I think would be the right way. And really the main things that I teach my kids as far as like conducting themselves in the business of professional wrestling is don't be an asshole, be respectful, always be helpful. Ears open, mouth shut, especially in those like first, I wouldn't even say especially in those first like parts of your year, like for most of your career, because like sometimes like just being a fly on the wall and just listening to people and just like really asking feedback, like that stuff like people like don't really do, and it's kind of weird. But like I always tell them, I was like, you will be surprised what you can learn by just asking someone, what can I do better? Because even if they didn't watch your match or if they didn't watch your promo, whatever it may be, they're gonna have something. And even if it's just one thing, what they told you that you picked apart and you took and gathered from it, you learned something.
How much does being a trainer help you as a wrestler? Because I was listening to Bryan Danielson, and when he became the trainer of All Pro, he was very young, like you. You're only 23. He was young. He's like, I didn't feel qualified to be a trainer because I was young. But then when you start training people, you have to have a deeper knowledge of it to understand it better. And so that helped me as a wrestler to teach everybody. So how much has it helped you, like as a wrestler, to teach everybody, still being young yourself?
Yeah, I mean, just like Brian said, like it's true. You have to go out there and get more knowledge, more experience. So that way, like you're not just not going and taking money from someone and like talking out your ass for like the 2-hour, 3-hour duration of a training period. It's definitely made me a better wrestler in the form of reps because, you know, repetition is key. Good repetition is key. So to be able to get in there and practice the basics, wrestling 101, which is my specialty, I feel, as a teacher, that has been a godsend, a tremendous thing that I'm able to go and do all the time because it keeps me crisp and ready. And it also, like, I think kind of helps my students as well to see that I'm not only just showing them these things, but I'm doing it with them. Like, I feel weird if I'm not doing drills or like if I'm just standing off to the side and like telling them to do it, you know. I have to be in there. I'm very much a hands-on teacher because like that's how I would have wanted to be taught. So yeah, that's really how it helps me, I feel.
Who are some people you'd like to shout out that you have you've trained, or maybe some people that have just started, or people that you kind of see floating around? Because I know a few off the top of my head, like Cody Manhorn, Aaron Wade. I really like Pete Youngblood a lot. I think he's got a lot of potential. I've liked a lot of what I've seen of him so far. And I know, and I know I'm missing plenty of people as well, but is there some people you'd like to kind of give a shout out or maybe elaborate on any of the names that I just brought up?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Aaron Wade was actually the one I was talking about in the story where the trainer just left and I had to take over. So obviously I want to shout out Aaron Wade because the trainer before me literally told me that Wade wouldn't be a wrestler. And I said, I bet $5 you're wrong. And I turned him into a wrestler, you know. I don't want to say that like I did it myself. Like obviously Aaron Wade put in so much work into it as well. Cody Manhorn, you know, another one. Referee Shiny Shoes is another one as well. You know, I've trained referees, wrestlers like the Good Sisters. Those are two girls that right now I have taken under my wing and I am working on retraining. And it's been awesome, you know. I have like this plethora of like kids, you know, come to me and seek knowledge and like just want to get better. Like, because as long as there's people that want to get better, pro wrestling gets better as a whole. So Pete Youngblood's another one. My little asshole, I call him. But no, everyone's doing really good and they're just getting better day by day. You know, they're so respectful, except Pete. They work their ass off and they deserve all the recognition in the world. And they just deserve to be everywhere they can possibly be. Carson Dilbeck is another one. Carson works his little ass off. You know, he makes the drives. He hops in cars whenever he can. You know, he's at training every single time we have it. Like, literally, I have such a good batch of kids that like I could brag that could be the whole podcast. But yeah, those are pretty much all the ones I would want to shout out because like they've just been working their ass off and they deserve the recognition.
Did you get your $5?
No, that son of a bitch never paid me.
A carny son of a bitch.
Yeah, for real.
What are some of your future goals, whether it be this year? I mean, I know Jensen mentioned winning SCI, but this year or long term?
Winning SCI is obviously one of the bigger goals currently, but abroad from things in the Chattanooga area that I would love to do other than grow the scene as a whole, you know, I would really like to be more up in the Northeast. I would like to go to the West Coast, which I'm set to do sometime in the summer. I'm going to have to do some follow-ups, but I just want to, you know, do as much as I can on the independents and just really like continue to make a name for myself. I just put in a passport application, so I should be getting my passport back in the next few weeks. So I'm hoping to potentially, you know, break into Canada, do some things. I would love to go to Europe. Honestly, if we're being like honest here, the UK is one of my biggest goals. Like I would love to just go over there, whether it be train or just actually wrestle. Like that's where I would love to be, to like really perfect my craft because it's such a unique style that I just have such an appreciation for. So to be able to do that like would be massive for me. And then obviously,
go ahead, Jade.
This day and age of professional wrestling, we have, you know, we have different views on like what it is to be a successful professional wrestler. Some want to make money as an independent wrestler and they can make money, which is amazing. And then there's others that, you know, strive to be on television and get a contract. For me, you know, I want to do as much as I can on the independents to establish a name and be able to support my family. And then I would love to get a contract somewhere 100%. So obviously for me, the big goal is going to be to get a major contract with a major wrestling promotion at some point.
Yeah. And also just for people listening, like it was the pandemic was unfortunate timing for, you know, for everybody, for every reason, of course, but you were starting to get out there like Jakara before, you know, that shut down and all that stuff. Like, you know, there was, you know, you were starting to get out there and then like the pandemic put a halt on some of the stuff that I'm sure you probably had in the works and stuff like that. And I love hearing that you want to just be all over the place. But now that you are the SUP Bonestorm champion, and I am very heavily invested as a fan of SUP Graps, Okay, who do you want to defend this title against? Like, who do you have? You have a long history with Brett Eisen. I have on pretty good authority that like he might step back from the ring again sometime in the near future, hopefully.
So I'm hearing, yeah.
Yeah, it's he might be coming back. I hope so. You got a lot of history with him. You got a lot of history with Manders in that company as well. Who knows what the hell happened to Teddy King, that guy. I mean, you had a whole thing going on with him, and that just became a thing with Manders, but that's still kind of in the books. You have so many possibilities with this Bonestorm Championship. Do you have anyone on your radar as like the person you would most like to defend that title against first in the Basement East?
Honestly, it's hard to say right now. I know that actually one person that I would love would be O'Shea Edwards.
Yeah, I love that.
Because I feel like O'Shea is someone that was such like a big part in the growth of SUP, and it sometimes I feel doesn't go mentioned. So I'd love to be able to, and I'm pretty sure he did have a chance at the Bonestorm Championship, but I would love to give him another one. One, because I have so much respect for him, and two, because he freaking deserves it. He's one of the best wrestlers in the world, bar none. And he's just so beloved in Nashville. Now, results would vary, obviously. We'd have to see what happened when the bell rang, but I know that that's someone that definitely deserves the championship opportunity. So really, all I can say is no matter who I defend against whenever we come back on April 17th, I just hope to God it's somebody that has worked and fought just as hard as I have to get here. Because that's what I want.
I love the idea of O'Shea. That's a really good shout out there. When Many Men hits on the speakers on in the Basement East, like the mood changes. Like, and you're right, him and Brett as a tag team and as a feud that meant a lot to like just kind of the foundation, in my opinion, of that company. So I love the idea of you and O'Shea. And yeah, April 17th, the SUP Graps will return. What other shows are coming up that you want to plug, Jaden? Because there's a lot. I know you're wrestling Tank on Friday, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be making my ICW No Holds Barred debut in the Pit Fighter against Tank in what is being dubbed the Battle of Chattanooga. So it's going to be my first time stepping foot into the Pit Fighter itself, and it's also going to be my first time stepping foot into a death match. So very, very intrigued to see how that goes. I don't know what to expect, but the unexpected. I know that.
Can you prepare for something like that?
It's hard to say. Like, I could sit there and do all the drills. I could go to the gym, do as many reps on whatever I'm doing that day, but I don't think it's going to compare to what like is going to be done in that pit. That's just violence personified once that happens, and it's survival of the fittest. So, I think that's the game plan going into it. There's no way to really prepare other than just doing. So, but as we know, like Jaden Newman's career has been very much of a story of survival. So hopefully, fingers crossed, God willing, I'm able to survive and pull out the victory and, shock some more people. But as far as like what I have coming up, other than ICW, the week after that, I will be making my Pro Wrestling Grind debut in Massachusetts against Matt Mikowski. And then I'll be flying right back to Tennessee and doing a show in the middle of La Follette, Tennessee, if you've ever heard of it. If not, it makes sense. And then after that, I'll be finishing the month strong with TWE, where I'll be facing Brutal Bob Evans in a 60-minute Ironman match. And I believe we're going to be donating the money from that to charity.
Awesome.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, so a little bit of March Madness for you.
What does it mean? What does it mean for you, just real quick? Not only entering the deathmatch scene, but like it being against Tank. Because Tank, for people who may not know somehow, like Tank is an absolute legend in your area. So like, a guy who I'm sure you grew up watching before you were a wrestler yourself.
Yeah. So, it's funny. I used to watch Tank at my middle school whenever I was like still there. And I remember we'd always get like these pep rally shows. And before the pep rally shows, they would have some of the wrestlers come into the lunchroom while we were eating lunch, and they would like be standing up there around or like going around to the tables. And I remember walking up to Tank with Bailey Blake because, you know, we went to the same middle school. And I told Tank, I was like, one day I'm going to be a wrestler. And he said, yeah, all right, kid. So, you know, it's pretty funny to think that, like, then fast forward, like, however many years later, we're stepping foot into what is going to be a complete car wreck in the most respectful way, I say, because you never know what's going to happen in a death match. And, you know, there's so much behind this match, with it being the fact of it, the old guard of Chattanooga versus the new guard of Chattanooga, the past versus the present and the future in which I've helped mold. You know, it's a generational divide, and one generation is going to come up on top. Nothing like this has been done to my knowledge in the area. So it's super exciting to know that we get to be a part of something so historic.
My last one for you. We talked a little bit off air, and we mentioned our interview with Cole Roderick last week about independent cribs almost.
Yeah.
What is the coolest thing in the room that you were in right now?
The coolest thing in the room that
you have in the room.
Man, let me look around. All right. Other than this title that's right beside me.
True.
Let's see here. I'll be right back. I do have something.
There you go. We're getting the Cribs exclusive.
This is our new segment. Anybody that comes on, we're going, what's the coolest thing in the room? And then hopefully we learn a little bit more about the person and see cool shit that they want to display.
Gotta have AC Mac on again to have him show us something cool, because we started the segment after we already had him on.
It's an evolving interview process.
Yes,
Stephen Jensen.
Yes, so,
You
absolutely.
know, try to learn a little bit about everyone beyond what they do in wrestling. Here we go.
So the coolest thing that I have in the room, I have a shrine to professional wrestling, like right in the corner, because my wife let me get away with it. And on top of it is like just a bunch of different wrestling pops and old figures and posters and like just like different mementos of things I've done. But there's two things on there that I have that are like super cool to me and they mean a lot. One in which is a custom wrestling figure that a fan made for me and gave to me at a show. And like, it was just really cool. Like, it was given to me by like a little, I think it was like 5 or 6, like kid made it for me and gave it to me. And I thought it was like super cool. They like took the time to like do what he did to like make it customized for me. So that's always super sick to look at.
Awesome.
And it gives me a reason to smile. And then another thing I have is this like really sick Chris Hero action figure, because Chris Hero is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, if not my number one favorite wrestler of all time. So, it's super cool to like see that figure up there, because it kind of gives me motivation to be as good as him one day. Hopefully one day, who knows? But I know I am trying.
Chris Hero did the SCI like the first year, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
So he wrestled Kyle Matthews on night 1.
Yes.
But it was so cool. So I got to do a seminar in Charlotte, North Carolina about a few weeks ago, and I actually got to talk to him about that match. And just really got to pick his brain about so many things that I wanted to ask him for years. So that was like a super cool moment. And then like, because I was the only one of the seminar that like drove so far, like I think it was like 6-7 hour drive to Charlotte for me. I drove back through the night, and you know, I put like I say obligatory, but like I put like an obligatory tweet saying like, you know, I went to the Chris Hero seminar. I learned so much. I got to meet my hero, whatever, yada, yada, yada. It was super meaningful, I promise. But like, I'm paraphrasing right now. And then like he responded and was like, glad you made it home safe. Keep up the good work. You got this. And it meant so much to me. I could have framed that tweet. Like, nothing was as cool as that whenever like he responded. So No, he's legit one of the greatest of all time, and I hope to one day be half as good as him.
One of the nicest dudes by all accounts as well. So that was my question. Have you talked to Hero and spoke with him? But that's awesome that you did the seminar with him and he responded to the tweet. That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Last one I got for you, Jaden. I asked this to everybody. It's the most generic wrestling question ever, but I'm like genuinely interested to know this about every wrestler I talk to. Okay. I know you mentioned that Mysterio and Guerrero Halloween Havoc like really got you hooked as like a wrestling fan at a young age.
Yeah.
What would you consider to be your favorite match of all time, like as a fan? Is it that match, or do you have another match at this point that's like your favorite match of all time as a fan?
Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 25.
That's a good answer. That's a common answer, but it's a good answer. That's a really good answer. That's one of mine as well, for what it's worth.
I figured it was a common one. Dylan Hells gives me shit all the time for it because he hates both of them. So
you had an entire interview here without talking about Dylan Hales. Also, shout out to Dylan Hales. That dude
shout out to Dylan Hells, you piece of shit who hates but no. Yeah, that's definitely like one of my favorite matches of all time. The meaning of it is super cool, especially like whenever we get into the second match for WrestleMania 26 and how long the build was and how good it was. And oh God, like that hype package was just so good. Like literally you can't get any better than Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker.
See, I'm a believer that 26 is better than 25. That's a different podcast, but that's my belief is that 26 is better than 25.
I'll take 25 over 26, but I feel you go wrong either way. Like they almost they complement one another. It's almost like one really big match. Like
100% agree with that.
Jaden, let the people know where they can find you at.
Awesome. So if you're on here, you found me on here, so that's good. Now I'm going to redirect you to some other places. You can find me on Twitter at Jaden for Real. That's JADEN 4 Real. You can find me on Instagram at Jaden1Newman, JADEN 1 Newman. No, I'm not a female basketball player, but I am a professional player. So let's clear the air already in case you get wrong.
When I Googled this, that was the first thing that popped up. It's like,
always is. Always.
I guess I got to put wrestler in there to make sure everything is good.
I've got to spell Jaden with an X now or something. I don't know. So, but you can find me on Twitter, Instagram at those handles. I'm on TikTok as well. I don't post a lot on there, but my wife's trying to get me to say, hey, honey, say hello.
Hi.
So you can find me on TikTok sometimes. But you can more prevalently find me on Twitter and Instagram. As far as merch, you can go to Pro Wrestling Tees /Jaden Newman. And then I also am on TeePublic. So be sure to check out those for merch. If you want to follow me on social media, if you feel it deep down in your heart to do so, please hit the follow button on those social media links that I've given you, or handles, not links, because you can't click this. But that's where you can find me, and hopefully you find me well.
Jaden, we really appreciate you taking the time out tonight to talk with us. It was great. Follow Jaden on Twitter. You can follow him at Jaden for Real. Every other platform that he mentioned. Yes, if you Google Jaden Newman wrestler, you will get a female basketball player. If you just Google Jaden Newman. Again, congratulations on winning the Bonestorm title. Again, thank you for joining us, guys. We'll be right back here on the.
All right, guys. We're gonna wrap the show up here. Thanks for joining us. Jeremy had to go pick the kids up from school, so I'm gonna wrap the show up here by myself. Y'all can follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter at FightTalk_. If you're into Twitch and video games, later tonight, myself and Joel Pearl, 7 p.m. Eastern, we'll be playing Mario Kart. If you have a Nintendo Switch, come join us. It'll be a lot of fun. We always do tournaments. We play from usually about 7 Eastern until about 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So that's twitch.tv/Fightful Gaming. You got the Fightful Select Weekender. If you want to listen to that this Sunday, FightfulSelect.com. If you enjoyed this interview and enjoy the spotlight in general, the Weekender is a good show for you because I talk about the world of independent wrestling every weekend. So got a lot of stuff to talk about. I'll have a lot of stuff from GCW because I'll be at the show this Saturday. GCW Astronaut. Did you already get the kids?
Yeah, I got him off the bus. The EP's home
perfect.
and everything. So I just came to say hi, or came to say hi and bye.
Yeah, perfect. So I was just wrapping it up. Go watch us on Twitch tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. And Degrassi Dudes, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., me and SP3, we're talking the Emma Nelson and Sean Cameron relationship. So that's going to be fun tomorrow morning. So yeah, that's everything I had. I was literally just about to hit the button. So if there's anything else you got, Jeremy, we can get on out of here.
Head over to Fightful Overbooked. We've got Day After Dynamite right now with Will Washington, who got a shout out from Swerve on an interview that I listened to. All the guys at Grab City. That's Saturdays at noon right here on Fightful. But head over to Fightful Overbooked. Will Washington, Share Delaware over there. FMC with myself and SP3 8:30 tomorrow. And yeah, I think that's it. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate all the love. Appreciate all the support. Jensen, thank you as always, guys. We'll talk to y'all next.